Visvesvaraya College of Disaster Management leaders. A warm welcome to all the speakers and participants in the auspicious occasion of birthday celebration of Sir M. Visvesvaraya. Wish you all a very happy Engineers Day. Today, on this special occasion, we are happy to have you all in this 3-day online training program, Fundamentals of Disaster Management, jointly organized by VVCE and NIDM. In this online inaugural program, we have with us eminent personalities like an officer who has commanded an ordnance unit of prestigious strike corps of Indian Army, Lieutenant Colonel DC Vasishta, presently Joint Director of NIDM, Professor Tauhata, Emeritus Professor at University of Tokyo, Japan, who was the Chief Editor of Soils and Foundation, a civil engineering journal, having research work mainly in the areas of liquefaction of soil during earthquakes, has made his gracious presence during this inauguration. And we have with us honorable management members of Vidyavardhaka Sangha, President Sri Gundappa Gowda sir, along with the Honorable Secretary Engineer P. Vishwanath sir. Then the torch bearer of Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Dr. B. Sadashiva Gowda, Principal of VVCE, Dr. S.K. Prasad, Professor and Head of Department of Civil Engineering, and Dr. P.K. Umesha, Chairman of Research Studio. In the absence of, in his absence, I should mention a great stalwart of National Institute of Disaster Management, Executive Director, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, a person who has more than 3 decades of service in Army and having held all echelons of command with an air defense regiment in diverse theaters. Deputy Director General in Directorate of Army Air Defense. He has served as the Provost Marshal in the United Nations mission in Mozambique and has been the Director of Center for United Nations Peacekeeping, New Delhi. For 3 years, he was also the Secretary of International Association Peacekeeping Training Centers. We thank Major General M.K. Bindal for being so helpful behind the screen in this program, as well as in many rescuing operations of disasters in India. It's a great honor to be with all these stalwarts. I'm Kanmani SS, Assistant Professor of Civil Engineering Department, VVCE, proudly be doing today's Master of Ceremony. To begin with, I invite Ms. Nesira Prasad to invoke the blessings of Almighty for the successful completion of this online program. Over to you, Nesira.
Parvati Varasuta Gajanana Palisuyenanu Gajanana Parvati Varasuta Gajanana Palisuyenanu Gajanana Lambodharane ನಂಬಿದೆ ನಿನ್ನನು ಲಂಬೋದರನೆ ನಂಬಿದೆ ನಿನ್ನನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡಬೇಡವೋ ಗಜಾನನ ಕೈ ಬಿಡಬೇಡವೋ ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ವರಸುತ ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಎನ್ನನು ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಶಾಂಕುಶಧರ ಪಾಪ ವಿಮೋಚನ ಪಾಶಾಂಕುಶಧರ ಪಾಪ ವಿಮೋಚನ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಎನ್ನನು ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಎನ್ನನು ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ವರಸುತ ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಎನ್ನನು ಗಜಾನನ ಗುರುರಂಗ ವಿಠಲನ ಸ್ಮರಣೆಯ ಮಾಡುವ ಗುರುರಂಗ ವಿಠಲನ ಸ್ಮರಣೆಯ ಮಾಡುವ ನಿರುತ ಸುಖವ ಕೊಡು ಗಜಾನನ ನಿರುತ ಸುಖವ ಕೊಡು ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ವರಸುತ ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಎನ್ನನು ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಎನ್ನನು ಗಜಾನನ.
Thank you, Ms. Nesira. Now I request Professor Dr. S.K. Prasad sir to welcome the gathering. Sir, you are muted, sir.
Yeah, hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, madam. Very good morning, everybody. We have gathered here for the inauguration of online training program on fundamentals of disaster management. In addition to celebrations of Engineers Day, in honor of birthday of the greatest engineer of India, Sir M. Visvesvaraya. If Mysore is one of the well-planned and beautiful cities in India, it is because of the visions of Sir M. Visvesvaraya. I wish to mention here that disaster management in India has gained huge importance in recent times, especially after the Gujarat earthquake of 2001. Though disaster management belongs to all disciplines, arts, science, management, engineering, medicine, etc., civil engineers have a vital role to play in managing the disaster, reducing the loss of life, and decreasing the economic loss, with efforts before, during, and after the disaster. National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM, is in the forefront of creating awareness, connecting people, and providing technical know how on the aspects of disaster management. Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Mysore, popularly known as VVCE, has been imparting engineering and management education since 1997. We have 8 undergraduate programs, including civil engineering, and 3 postgraduate programs. I'm really proud and happy to state that all our undergraduate programs are accredited by NBA, and the institution has NAC accreditation with A grade. It is an autonomous college under Visvesvaraya Technological University, Belagavi, and is among the highly sought institutions for engineering admissions in Karnataka. VVCE is not only providing excellent teaching and learning environment to more than 3,500 students through 220 competent faculty members, but also focusing on research, innovation, and is working in thrust areas like disaster management. These two organizations, National Institute of Disaster Management (NIDM) and Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, have joined together for this 3-day online training program on fundamentals of disaster management, involving 7 excellent and eminent speakers starting from today. I'm proud and happy to welcome the dignitaries and participants for the inauguration of the training program. Firstly, let me take pleasure in inviting Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Executive Director, NIDM, in his absence. As he is preoccupied, he'll not be on this platform, but he has sent his best wishes for the success of this program. Next, I take pleasure in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandar Vashishta, Joint Director, NIDM, to this inaugural ceremony. Sir, you have been instrumental in bringing the two organizations together for this online training program. We look forward for continued interaction. I am honored to welcome Professor Ikuo Tauhata, Professor Emeritus at University of Tokyo, Japan, who is my doctoral degree advisor. We are fortunate to have you in the inaugural ceremony, and we are eager to listen to your keynote lecture immediately after the inauguration, Tauhata Sensei. Let me welcome my good friend Dr. Chandan Ghosh, professor at NIDM, New Delhi, again in his absence. He is ever ready to, create awareness in disaster management in any event of this kind. He will be joining us in about an hour's time from now. I welcome Sri Gunda Pagoda, Honorable President of Vidyavardhaka Sangha, and Engineer P. Vishwanath, former and first Mayor of Mysore City and Honorable Secretary of Vidyavardhaka Sangha. We are fortunate to have you both here, and you are the constant source of inspiration for all the activities of this kind organized at Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering. We are honored to have you here, sirs. I take this opportunity to welcome respected Principal of Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Professor Sadashiva Gowda, who is the main pillar of strength of our institution and a motivator for such programs. I also welcome Sri B. Shivalingappa, Honorable Vice President Vidyavardhaka Sangha, Sri Shaila Ramannawar, Honorable Treasurer Vidyavardhaka Sangha for the inaugural function. I welcome Dean Academic Professor H.S. Dayanand, Dean R&D Professor G.B. Krishnappa, all other deans, heads of the departments, faculty members of Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering for the inaugural ceremony. I welcome the technical teams, staff, faculty members, and students of the Department of Civil Engineering. I welcome all the eminent speakers, Dr. Montu Bose from the Department of Business and Sustainability, Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, Major General Dr. V.K. Nayak, Kirti Chakra, Ati Vishishta Seva Mandal, former Senior Consultant, NDMA, Brigadier Dr. Vinod Datta, former Senior Consultant, NIDM, Dr. CVR Murthy, Professor of Civil Engineering at IIT Madras, and the members of staff and faculty of NIDM. Most importantly, let me take pleasure in welcoming the participants. I'm happy that you all have registered in large numbers, amounting to more than 800. We have academicians, researchers, working professionals, and students as participants. You all are the backbones of such events, such programs. I wish you all will have a great time during the next 3 days. I welcome Professor Umesh PK, Coordinator for Research Studio, all my colleagues from the
Thank
Department
you,
of
sir.
Civil Engineering, and my dear students. My big welcome to each one of you and who have assembled here online for the inaugural function. Thank you, and over to Professor Kanmani.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of VVCE and NIDM, I welcome you all, sir. Thank you. Let us all be together in inaugurating the function now. I request the organizers to do the needful.
Thank you, Professor Kanmani. And
Yes, sir. We are going for inauguration, sir.
okay.
Just a minute, sir. Yes, sir. I hope the screen is visible, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that inauguration. Now I request Lieutenant Colonel DC Vasishta, sir, Joint Director of NIDM, to brief us about this online training program, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Kanmani, and thank you, Professor S.K. Prasad, sir, who has given very warm welcome to the team here at NIDM. I would take this opportunity to wish everyone present here the Happy Engineers Day, the celebrations which we are starting with Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Mysuru. And it's a proud privilege for all of us that the Honorable President Shri Gundappa Gowdaji is present for this inaugural ceremony. My executive director has intimated his best wishes for the program. Today he has to go to some meeting in the Prime Minister's office, so he's not available on date, but he will try to join us very soon whenever he is back in the office. So thank you, Shri Gundappa sir. You have been instrumental in this entire program. I take your blessings to start this program today, being the senior most present here. Then I would thank Engineer P. Vishwanath sir, who is present here today from VVCE College, and then the principal here, Dr. B. Sadashiva Gowda sir. Thank you so much. Dr. Umesha sir, who is a professor and chairman of the research studio at VVCE. Thank you so much. And to all the faculty members, the dean, the head, and every faculty member from VVCE who has joined us today from the one of the beautiful cities in India, the Mysuru. And we would love to visit the campus for a face-to-face program later on in this year. And we would love to see this COVID ends here only. as we don't see the third wave as has been anticipated. We With me at NIDM, I have a team with me, Balaji A, who is a GIS developer who has been instrumental in this making this program a success. Then I have Dharmendra Yadav in my team, who is present today and who is monitoring the entire program on the YouTube, as you have hosted it on YouTube also. Excuse me, sir. Dr. Tohata, I would welcome on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management for this program. Since you have taken out your time to be present here, and we would certainly listen to your keynote and later on with your lecture series. Dr. CVR Murthy has been associated with NIDM in a lot of programs, lot of association with him, and we look forward for his joining us today in this program. And with us is Dr. Chandan Ghosh. As you have said, he's ever ready in whatever format he can be asked, and he'll be soon joining us today. And with me, Major General Dr. V.K. Nayak Kirti Chakra, AVSM, is a senior consultant. He was with NIDM. Previously, he was associated with NDMA. So with his experience, exposure to various disaster management aspects, so he would be taking a series of lecture in this program in these 3 days. Brigadier Vinod Datta, very known face on television also. He's a good orator and speaks most of the time whenever there is a disaster or any other aspects. He is a national speaker on all these aspects. Dr. Montu Bose, he is from the Department of Business and Sustainability, Terry School of Advanced Study. So I welcome all the faculty members who will be taking their lectures, their programs in this 3-day course, which we are jointly hosting with Vidyavardha College of Engineering. And it's a proud privilege for us to take forward the program which the Government of India feels that as per the Prime Minister's agenda, 10-point agenda and disaster risk reduction, it is very important that we reach out to the masses to take forward this message of disaster resilient India and how to make it disaster resilient and to build the capacity of the nation in fighting any emergencies or any situation of the disasters. With this, I would give a brief introduction on NIDM. What are we and where do we stand in terms of disaster management? So NIDM was constituted under the Act of Parliament under the Ministry of Home Affairs with a vision to play a premier role in capacity development in India and the region. The efforts in the direction began with the formation of National Center for Disaster Management in India Institute of Public Administration, IAPA, under the Ministry of Agriculture, and center was formulated. In 2005, when the DM Act came into existence, the responsibility for the disaster shifted entirely to the Ministry of Home Affairs. So NIDM also came under Ministry of Home Affairs since 2005. The main responsibilities assigned under the DM Act was the human resource development, the capacity building, training, research, documentation, public advocacy in the field of disaster management. Both as the center, national center, and then as the National Institute, NIDM has performed a crucial role in bringing disaster risk reduction to the forefront of national agenda. The institutes believe that disaster risk reduction is possible only through promotion of culture of prevention involving all stakeholders. The institute is regularly working through strategic partnerships with various ministries, departments of central, state, local governments, academic bodies, research, technical organizations in India and abroad, and other bilateral and multilateral international agencies. NIDM is proud to have a multidisciplinary core team of professionals working in various aspects of disaster management. In its endeavor to facilitate training and capacity building, NIDM has recently moved into its new campus at New Delhi at Rohini, and we will be soon starting a campus in South India at Visvesvaraya very soon. And we are anticipating that in the month of January next year, we will be getting the new campus inaugurated at Visvesvaraya. So this is part of the outreach programs and the capacity development program of NIDM that we are moving out from the base at Delhi, and we are spreading out to all over the country. NIDM, with the aim of capacity building towards a resilient India, today we are with Visvesvaraya College of Engineering, and I must thank Department of Civil Engineering, Dr. S.K. Prasad, who has taken his time out to associate with us for this capacity building measures and to spread this awareness program to the masses, to the students, and to the participants whoever have joined us today. And I see that they have joined in large numbers, and we will put forward our points on the basics of disaster management to tell the gathering on the fundamentals of disaster management. Executive Director, NIDM, Major Manoj Kumar Bindal, who is not present today with us, but he has graciously accorded consent for conferring with the participation certificate to all participants of the course whose presence is 80% or above. And I see a quiz contest also, which has been organized by the VVCE Mysuru, and the prize is also quite huge, and I would request Dr. S.K. Prasad to announce it later on. With this, now I invite upon Dr. S.K. Prasad, the professor and head Department of Civil Engineering, VVCE, for the further proceedings. Sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Professor S.K. Prasad, sir, you are mute.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much, sir. Thank you for all your good wishes. We surely will work with you, and we look forward for the best way of creating awareness. And we are hoping that large number of students will be taking part from Mysore region, Mysore as well as Bangalore region, and in future also we would like to associate it this way. Thank you for all the good words. And as you
Thanks.
said, we want you people to come to Mysore and come to our institution. We are looking forward for that.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Over
sir.
to Kimberly, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your gracious presence and also for addressing us all. Now, I request the backbone of our institute, the principal of Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Dr. B. Sadashiva Gowda, sir, to give his remarks on this Engineers' Day. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Kanmani. It's a great honor to be associated with NIDM. I think this is the second function we are jointly doing with NIDM. Lieutenant Colonel Wasista from NIDM, Professor Ikuo Tawato from Japan, then our Honorable President Sri Gundappa Gowda, Honorable Secretary Sri P. Vishwanath, Professor S.K. Prasad, who is the architect of this program to be conducted in association with NIDM, Professor Umesh P.K., all the distinguished faculty members, invitees, and also a large number of participants who are attending this workshop in the online mode. So as Professor S.K. Prasad mentioned in the beginning, VVC is an autonomous institute with a student population over 3,500, and we have been accredited by NBA and also NAC with an A grade, and we are one of the prominent engineering and MBA institutes in this part of India. As part of Engineers Day, let me wish everyone a very happy Engineers Day. We are celebrating the Sir M.'s birth anniversary as Engineers Day to pay tribute to his significant contribution for the overall development of our country. This is the 54th Engineers Day being celebrated in India and also in many other countries, particularly in Sri Lanka, Tanzania. And this day was started in the year 1967. This is the 54th Engineers Day. And as we all know that Sir M.E. was born on September 15th, 1860 in Karnataka. And he was also the Diwan of Mysore because of his stint as Diwan in the old province Mysore state. The Mysore state got significant overall developments, particularly the dam. It could be the university, it could be the bank. Mysore still many initiatives paid rich dividends to the Karnataka state in particular, and also the entire India, because earlier he was working for Mumbai, and then later he moved to Karnataka and then to Hyderabad. So as tribute to his contributions, we celebrate Engineers Day. And particularly his administrative acumen has left an indelible mark in the history of India, particularly his vision for all-round development, unwavering dedication, and overall transparency in public life was a kind of things to be emulated by all of us. And this occasion, we are very happy and we feel proud that such a great statesman, engineer, who selflessly worked for the growth of the country, and that too during pre-independence. So he is remarkable. I think he is an inspiration for all of us, for also the younger generation. I believe that all of us can emulate some of his qualities so that our country, the world, will become a better world, a better place to live in. With these few remarks, once again, I wish everyone a very happy Engineers Day. And we are very happy to associate with NIDM because we believe that the topic is so relevant, fundamentals of disaster management. We see so many disasters that are occurring. Some are man-made, some are natural, but we believe that we have the ability, we have the capacity to handle these disasters, provided we do a lot of planning, a lot of awareness programs. I think it is this workshop is definitely a right one in that direction. We continue to associate with NIDM for the betterment of our society and to mitigate the disasters. With this, I once again wish all the participants a wonderful, informative, and useful workshop on fundamentals of disaster management. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sadashive Gowda, sir, for reminding us the great works and contributions of Sir MV. Thank you, sir. Now I request Engineer P. Vishwanath, sir, the Honorable Secretary of Vidyavardhaka Sangha, to speak to all of us.
Namaste. I'm very happy to associate myself in the inaugural function of the three-day online training on the fundamentals of disaster management and also Engineers Day. Happy Engineers Day to everyone. Colonel DC Vasista, Piko, Tanata, Japan, Honorable President Shri Gundap Gowda, Honorable Treasurer Shri Shail Ramanava, Professor S.K. Prasad, Dr. B. Sadashiva Gowda, all the guests of honors who are joined this 3-day inaugural program. I'm sure that this training is very essential as disaster comes in a natural way or in man-made also. And the engineers' part in that management of the disaster is very high and they're very responsible. I hope this training on the fundamental disaster and management will certainly throw more light to all the participants to contribute themselves in this great program. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I request Shri Gundappa Gowda, sir, Honorable President of Vidyavardhaka Sangha, to give the presidential address.
ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಪಶ್ಚಿಮ ಘಟ್ಟಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಮಡಿಕೇರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 2-3 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ ವಿಕೋಪಕ್ಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಜನ ಬಹಳ ತೊಂದರೆಯನ್ನು ಪಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ವಿದ್ಯಾಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯಿಂದ NIDP ಅವರ ಸಹಯೋಗದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ ವಿಕೋಪ ವಿನಾಶದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಡೆಸುತ್ತಿರುವ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಗಾರವು ಯಶಸ್ವಿಯಾಗಿ ನಡೆಯಲೆಂದು ನಾನು ಹಾರೈಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It was so motivation to us. Now I request Dr. Umesha PK, Professor and Chairman of Research Studio, Department of Civil Engineering, to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Kanmani. Good morning to one and all.
Sir, you are muted.
Thank you, Kanmani. Good morning to one and all. It is a great pleasure for me in proposing the vote of thanks on this special occasion of inaugural session of 3-day online training program on fundamentals of disaster management organized by the Department of Civil Engineering, Mysuru, in collaboration with National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi. I would like to thank Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Executive Director, Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandar Vasishta, Joint Director, NIDM, Government of India, New Delhi, for this their presence and active participation in this program. I would like to thank our Doctor Engineer Iko Tohata, University of Tokyo, Japan, and Dr. Chandan Ghosh, Professor NIDM, New Delhi, in the inaugural function. I would like to thank our President, Sri Gundappa Gowda, Sri Shivalingappa, Honorary Vice President, Vidyavardhaka Sangha, Honorable Secretary, Engineer P. Vishwanath of Vidyavardhaka Sangha, and Sri Shailar Ramananar, Honorable Treasurer, Vidyavardhaka Sangha, Mysuru, for all the support and encouragement in organizing such events and for gracing on this auspicious occasion. I would like to thank our beloved principal, Dr. B. Sadashivegoda, for his constant motivation and encouragement in organizing this program and being a part of this inaugural function. My heartfelt thanks to and appreciation to Dr. S.K. Prasad, HOD, Department of Civil Engineering, VVCE, for his constant support and effort taken to organize this program. I would like to thank Dr. H.S. Dayananda, Dean Academic, and Dr. G.B. Krishnappa, Dean R&D, for their support. I express my sincere thanks to the organizing coordinator, Professor Kanmani S.S., Professor Rajit T.J., Professor Manoj, Professor Raghavendra, for their tireless effort in organizing this program. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Balaji, Mr. Dharmendra Yadav, and all the technical supporting team from NIDM, and Professor our Krish P. and Avinash for their technical support and other facilities at VVCE. My sincere thanks to all the teaching and non-teaching staff and students of VVCE in general and civil engineering in particular. My heartfelt thanks to participants for joining their hands in learning from this program, the fundamentals of disaster management. We look forward for your active presence on all the 3 days of this event. Thank you, one and all. Thank you. Over to Kanmani, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And Kanmani Madam, if you just permit to the
Yes, sir.
permit me, as Lieutenant Colonel Vasishta mentioned, just to encourage the participants, I would like to inform the participants that we have announced prizes. Okay, and we plan to give 3 prizes for those who perform best. So performance is viewed through the quizzes which we give. From each of the eminent speakers' lectures, we will take 6 questions, and you'll have to answer those 6 questions. More on this will be mentioned by Professor Kanmani. And at the end of it, whoever has done well will get the prize. And if there are more number of people, who does well the fastest, so when who submits fast will be given the priority. So keeping that in mind, I want participants to make the best use of the situation, and I want as many participants as possible to get the best from the eminent speakers we have on the next 3 days to come. Over to Professor Kanmani.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for briefing us all. Dear all stalwarts and all the participant friends, let us break for 1 minute to switch over to our first session on geo-disaster management of earthquake, floods, and rainfall-induced landslides by Dr. Ing Ikuo Tohata, professor from University of Tokyo, Japan. Thank you all.
Yori.
Yes, sir.
We have all heard change is the law of nature, but time and again it has been shown that change is also the law that governs technology. With every passing day, technology requires us to create change, evolve, and accept to handle it better. Each passing day, we as engineers hunt new problems and find solutions to them. And we don't stop at it, we better the solution. Change is challenging, yet change is rewarding. And we have changed. We are now autonomous.
Yes, good morning. Good morning again to everyone. Today, in the very first session, we have with us Professor Tohata, Emeritus Professor from University of Tokyo.
Today, in the very first session, we have with us
Japan to
Professor
speak
Tohata,
about geo-disaster management of earthquakes, floods, and rainfall-induced landslides, along with our professors as panelists. Let me welcome the speaker, Professor Tohata, sir, to the session. Welcome you, sir. The panelists for question answer session today, we have Dr. S.K. Prasad, sir. Welcome you, sir. Dr. Ramesha P.K., sir. Welcome you, sir. And Dr. Chandan Ghosh, sir, who will be soon joining with us from NIDM. And all the coordinators and organizers from VVCE and NIDM. Welcome you all. To start with, let me invite Ms. Reshma, a final year student of Department of Civil Engineering, to introduce Professor Tohata, sir, to everyone. Over to you, Reshma. Reshma,
Good
you're
morning.
muted. Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks to each and every one of you for being here with us today. I'm very pleased to welcome everyone present on this occasion of the first lecture of online training program on fundamentals of disaster management being organized by Visvesvaraya College of Engineering, Mysuru, and National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi. First of all, I have the pleasure in welcoming the eminent researcher and administrator and today's speaker, Professor Ikuo Tohata, for this occasion. Welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Professor Chandan Ghosh of NIDM, New Delhi, Dr. S.K. Prasad, HOD, Department of Civil Engineering, VVCE, Mysore, Dr. H.S. Dayananda, Dean and Academics, Dr. Umesha P.K. and Coordinators, Research Studio, Department of Civil Engineering, VVC. I take this opportunity to welcome guests, all my teachers and participants. Most important for any activity is the participants. I know all of you have come together in large number to listen to Dr. Engineer Ikuo Tohata. I wholeheartedly welcome you all. I welcome each and everyone.
Sure. Yes. Reshma? One minute. Yeah. Before I hand over the session to Reshma, and I request Dr. S.K. Prasad, sir, to introduce Tohata, sir. Sir, you're muted again.
Okay.
Sir, yeah.
It's a pleasure to
ಏನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್
introduce.
ಆಗಿದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ
Yeah, it's a pleasure to introduce Professor Tauhata to the audience. Let me read a brief resume of Professor Tauhata, who was my advisor when I was doing my doctorate at University of Tokyo. Professor Ikuo Tauhata is an emeritus professor in civil engineering at the University of Tokyo. He worked in University of Tokyo from 1985 till he retired in 2015. He obtained his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees from University of Tokyo in 1977, 79, and 1982, respectively. He was a visiting professor at University of British Columbia, Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok, Chulalongkorn University, also in Bangkok. He wrote the bestseller book on geotechnical earthquake engineering published by Springer. He has guided over 25 doctoral students and published more than 300 technical articles in journals. Professor Tauhata is a member of Japanese Geotechnical Society Geotechnical Society, member of Southeast Asia Geotechnical Society, member of International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering, fellow member of Japan Society of Civil Engineers, member of Japan Association of Earthquake Engineering, member of Japan Landslide Society, and many such professional organizations. He was the chief editor of Soils and Foundation, a popular civil engineering journal, and was vice president Asia of International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering. He has won many awards. In 1985, he received Best Paper by Young Authors from Japanese Society of Soil Mechanics and Foundation Engineering. He was honored by the Ministry of Education for the best performance in education by correspondence in the field of electrical engineering. He received from Japanese Geotechnical Society many awards for best papers. He received Shamsher Prakash Research Award for in soil dynamics, Japanese Geotechnical Society Award for distinguished research, and many others. His paper was recognized as one of the best 12 papers out of 600 in Geoengineering 2000 Conference of Melbourne, and many such awards. Some of the areas of interest of Professor Tabhata are deformation characteristics of cohesionless soils, dynamic analysis of earth structures during earthquake, permanent displacement of ground caused by seismic liquefaction, soil improvement by densification and grouting, stability of seabed in static and dynamic manners, thermal effects on mechanical behavior of clays, microscopic observation of granular behavior of sand subjected to shear, dynamics of landslides and debris flow, and mechanical properties of municipal wastes. Basically, Professor Tauhata looks at how a disaster can be controlled, and he tries to give a very simple and easy solution to many of these. I'm sure all of you will be, feeling happy to listen to Professor Tauhata, and it's my pleasure to present Professor Tauhata to all of you.
Thank you.
Over to
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Prasad, sir. Before I hand over the session to the speaker, I have few things to tell to all the participants. So, dear participants, if you have any queries to ask our speaker, you can post them in the chat box along with your name and location. Those questions will be taken by our panelists after the presentation. And the feedback along with the quiz questions link will be posted in the chat box soon. Kindly give your valuable feedback. So, dear participants, kindly note that e-certificates will be issued to those who have registered in NIDM portal and on submission of all session feedbacks. Now, without any delay, let me hand over the session to Professor Ikuo Tauhata. Over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much, Kannani. Very nice to see you all today. First, need to share my video file with you. Oops. Always something wrong happens. Just a moment. I'm trying to share my presentation. Something wrong.
Sensei, you can go to share.
Yeah,
You
I
can
did
go.
it, but after sharing, computer cannot find my PowerPoint file. That's very strange. Yeah, I first try to share the file, right? Not video file. Share screen. Share screen. Okay, share screen.
Yes, sir. You can share screen.
Share screen. Okay. And then
Yes, sir. Try to share your screen.
okay.
Okay. Click on share screen.
Okay,
And
I
click
share.
on. Yes, sir.
I
And
share
allow.
the screen. Then
Okay.
what to do?
The click on that entire screen. The one a small window will appear.
Yes. I share the entire screen.
Yes. And below that, your screen will appear in small screen. Check that screen. Click on that small screen, the thumbnail, and then click on share.
Share. Okay.
Yeah. We will get it. We will get your screen. No problem. Now you can open your presentation and.
Now it's opening.
Yes, sir. It's opening.
Yeah, it was open before. It was. Was this okay? Can you see this?
Yes, sir. We are seeing.
Okay, thank you very much. Very sorry for this trouble. Always I am annoyed by very primitive problems. So I need to learn fundamentals of disaster management presentation.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Button, sir.
What?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So title is like this. So I'd like to address some basic issues, not only engineering, but also some societal issues. So Professor Prasad introduced me kindly, but he missed several important information. First, I'm the life member of the Indian Geotechnical Society, and also I was a distinguished visiting professor of IIT Bombay. Please don't forget this. So contents are like this. So I will start my talk with the idea of risk and geo-risk, in which uncertainty is an essential problem. Then I'll move on to view on recent disasters, how to handle rainfall, landslide, and then earthquake risks, and maintenance efforts will be important. So I'll touch upon life cycle cost and empirical human wisdom. So first, this is one of the recent Japanese political scandals in which unexpected garbage was found underground, and this land used to be owned by the national government and was purchased then by a private sector. Available borehole data showed soft but normal soils only, no garbage was shown there. However, after commencement of building construction, a huge amount of garbage was encountered, and then private sector insisted on 80% discount because of this trouble. And it was approved by the government. Then politicians started to argue about this, saying that 80% is too much. So this is a big political dispute about the Japanese former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And then this example in which probabilistic approach to subsurface uncertainty does not work. Yeah, I know many good, smart people on probabilistic analysis, but in this case, for example, their theory cannot foresee garbage because borehole data shows only sand and clay. How can they imagine the problem of garbage? So we have to be very, very realistic about the problem. So yeah, actually at the bottom of this photo, you can see garbages over here. Oops, what's going on? I cannot move. Just a moment. Okay, can you see this? So this is a map of Japan. So I'd like to talk about Fukuoka City in the Kyushu Island on the western side of Japan. Here, this accident happened 5 years ago in 2016. Subway construction was going on underneath, and suddenly the street surface caved in unexpectedly. And then a technical committee was formed to study the cause of this trouble. And the conclusion was that locally unstable geology was actually missed and not considered in design. So the site is here. Today, everything looks okay. However, we learned that subsurface investigation, borehole or geophysical survey, whatever, and it's not enough. So there are always risks. And this is another example in Bhutan. This is #1 highway of that nation. That this Solchen section here, the highway undergoes slope instability like this, like this. So when I switch on the pointer, then PowerPoint does not work. But so I don't use a pointer anymore. So this is a winding highway like this, and like this. And this is a view from the top of this site. So actually, this is a site of geologically weak zone, and you can see many slope instabilities within this limited width of zone because of highlight weak rock. So unfortunately, the design of this #1 highway did not care the geology and just constructed this winding road here. So risk caused by 3 times passing this dangerous zone makes the risk 3 times higher. So unfortunately, this was not a good design for highway. And also, material property, as shown in soil mechanics, rock mechanics textbooks, is not a constant input parameter for design. It's subject to change with time. You can see that this slope in Bhutan is made of this pyrite rock, made of very, very small pieces. And actually, pyrite is a metamorphic rock and it's prone to water action and disintegration into small pieces. So this rope just keeps falling down every year. So uncertainty is a source of georisk. Georisk means unexpected negative situation triggered by insufficient knowledge and insufficient information on subsoil conditions. And the problem is that ground was produced by nature without attention to uniformity, without attention to quality control, without land use plan. So nature does not care human activities. So consequently, ground is too complicated for probabilistic approach to capture. We encounter garbage. Also, subsurface investigation is the key to reduce georisk. So non-uniformity. To cope with this, actually the number of boreholes or number of penetration tests or whatever is more important than precision of costly investigations. Number is important. How much effort do you make on non-uniformity? So probably geophysical survey is one of the solutions, but geophysical survey normally cannot detect 1 meter weak soil. 50 meters is okay, but 1 meter is too small for geophysical survey. That's a limitation. So Flexibility is necessary when georisk is detected during design construction. Please do not insist on the original design. So just I introduced several examples of georisk issues. This is tilting of buildings in San Francisco. It's tilting. So financial loss was significant. This is another example in Japan. So it brought huge loss to contractors and developers because the entire buildings, 4 buildings of this size was just demolished and reconstructed with their own expenses. This Italy and Bologna, it's not too much financial loss, but it's tilting. This is Switzerland, situated on landslide mass and tilting. This is the Jakarta. This huge building is tilting. So this is really a financial trouble to the owner. This is just only one successful example of tilting. It brought lots of income to this nation. But others, tilting is a heavy debt, financial loss to the owners. So there are theories about risk. Risk is a combination of loss and probability. Small loss but high probability is our favorite problem. So we know how to handle this. But from the risk viewpoint, in the calculations, this type of risk is equivalent to huge loss but low probability. This is called extreme event that may occur once every 2,000 years. Actually, we do not know how to handle this. Such trouble happened in Indian Ocean tsunami, for example, and very rare earthquake is another example, and flood. So in graphical view, probability of exceedance per year is plotted against loss. So big loss occurs very rarely, while small loss occurs very frequently. So this is called risk curve. So risk is a combination of first probability. So for probability, we have this type of curve. It's called hazard curve. Horizontal axis is the intensity of action. So big intensity occurs very rarely, very scarcely, while small intensity occurs almost every day. So curve is like this. And also probability of damage is another issue. Horizontal axis is the intensity of natural action. So this is fragility curve. Big damage occurs like this. When intensity of natural action is strong, then probability of damage is high. But probability of smaller damage is even higher. So this is called fragility curve. So probabilistic people work on hazard curve and fragility curve to calculate the risk. So very briefly, this is the way of calculations. Big damage occurs, say, 15% every year, and the smaller damage occurs another 55%. So probabilistic, say, loss of money is given by 0.15 times lost money by big damage plus additional 55% into small damage loss. So in this way, people calculate the loss of money due to natural hazards. Well, so theory is simple, but actually all the curves, fragility curve or any curve, rely on long-term observation of natural disasters or data from building collapse or whatever. So theory is simple, but data preparation needs lots of efforts by researchers. So there are more issues about the difficulty of probabilistic approach. First, theory is clear, but there are lots of uncertainty in subsurface soil and rock data. And error in field investigation, insufficient number of investigation are critical to disaster management. Also, we don't know much about the lack of data on earthquake action, rainfall action, volcanism, etc. by natures. We have only a short period of observation, maybe only in the 20th century. So we don't know what happened probabilistically in 18th century, 17th century, or even before. So record data is quite limited. So it's very difficult to discuss probabilistically about very rare events. Rare events, earthquake, that happens only once every 2,000 years. We cannot discuss about it because our data is limited to only 1 century. Also, how much is the loss caused by unexperienced extreme disasters? We don't know much. Also, future is same as past. Yeah, to work with probability, we have to assume that yesterday is same as tomorrow. But actually, many things are changing. Global climate change is one of the reasons for this change. So because of so many difficulties, we may choose the conventional deterministic approach in which, as you know very well, we decide the intensity of design earthquake, try to achieve factor of safety greater than, say, 1.1. Then problem is, okay, we may feel very happy if the calculated factor of safety is 1.1, or we say, okay, it's greater than 1.0, no problem. So actually, real earthquake may be greater than the design level. So real factor of safety may be 0.8. Then what would happen? Still small deformation or catastrophe happens. We have to use our imagination. Otherwise, we will be very unhappy to see catastrophe. So example of extreme events like this. As you may know, Japan suffered from big tsunami disaster in 2011 due to Tohoku earthquake, magnitude 9.0. But in the same areas, in AD 1933, another big tsunami came here. So after the disaster, total devastation, people decided to move to higher and safer places at the top of a hill. However, this place, okay, as shown in this photograph, this place was not convenient for the fishermen's community. Fishermen cannot do anything at the top of the hill. So later, very high wall was constructed along the shoreline to protect the original village site from a future tsunami. This wall was okay, very good, high enough to stop the 1933 tsunami. People felt very safe and came back. But in 2011, tsunami was even higher. So water overtopped the wall and totally destroyed the village again. So in calculation, the factor of safety for the wall was greater than 1, but the natural reaction was stronger. So real factor of safety was 0.8, 0.7, and this small factor of safety caused this tragedy. So actually, we did not have good imagination about the extreme event. That's a lesson. So please have imagination on the consequence of extreme events. This is always important for experts. So natural disasters like this recently. This is seismicity today. I plotted the magnitude of recent earthquakes in the past 70 years in the vertical axis against the year. So there are many earthquakes. However, in 19 up to 70s, strong earthquake occurred, 9.0, 9.5. Several earthquakes greater than 8.5 in magnitude. They're very powerful earthquakes. But such event disappeared from 1970 to 2000. So this green period was the time when earthquake engineering developed significantly. So I'm afraid that the textbook on earthquake engineering does not care the extreme events as happened in 60s or 50s. And then in the 21st century, again, strong earthquake started to occur, as shown on the right hand red arrows. So actually, we are living in a very difficult time of natural disaster mitigations. So this is a similar diagram, but the vertical axis is the earthquake energy in the during the earthquake. So in the 21st century, earthquake energy started to increase again. So rainfall today is like this. Actually, I plotted rainfall disaster record in Japan since 1945. Because of COVID-19 problem, I had lots of time because I had to stay home. So I had lots of time. I collected information from websites and collected natural disasters, rainfall disasters, more than 350 disasters in Japan, and I got this diagram. Vertical axis, the 24-hour rainfall. It's interesting that this upper bound is increasing since 1985. Rainfall is increasing. Rainfall disasters increasing in intensity. We don't know why. Possibly climate change, but actually we don't know. Well, I have no knowledge about this, but it's increasing. Therefore, I would like to say that probability based on past experiences may not be reliable. Also, I try to say something about India. This is Western Ghats mountain. This causes heavy rains and during monsoon seasons. So it's difficult to say something, but this literature states that in the recent times, frequency of heavy rain is increasing in the coastal regions. That means experiences in the 20th century is not reliable. We have to think about more extreme disasters from now on. And so extreme level of natural disaster is important. Normally, we first set the design level of natural disaster, and then we design structures and try to achieve factor of safety greater than 1. Then, today we have to think about extreme events. Factor of safety may be 0.8 only. Then what would be the consequence? Still damage is limited or total collapse. Taiwan suffered also extreme events. Rainfall was more than 3,000 millimeters in 4 days. So almost 800 people died because this is a consequence. The site of huge landslide, river was stopped, then this dam breached, and entire village was devastated. This is another site. Somehow you can recognize the consequence of terrible flood. So we have to imagine the consequence of extreme events. I'd like to insist on this issue. This is called scenario disaster, and we have to plan an emergency action. This is called business continuity plan, some industrial peoples. So factor of safety greater than 1 is not enough. So how to handle rainfall and landslide risks? There are 4 options. The first option is called aversion or avoidance of risk. For example, we should go to safer places. We should cancel projects at disaster-prone sites. Number 2 is reduction. You are doing this. Elaborate and costly but reliable seismic design or retrofitting is a common practice. And sometimes we may accept damage to a certain extent. Maybe cracking in the wall is okay, floor is okay, but we don't want to have a total collapse of a building. Number 3 is transfer. Give risk to somebody else. Insurance is one of the choices. Or you can just rent a building, don't buy a building. And retention or holding risk. No action if you don't have enough money to move, or if you don't have money to go to safer place or whatever. So actually retention is a particular option against rare but extreme events. We don't want to be prepared for earthquake that occurs once every 3,000 years. But we need to develop emergency action plan. What to do if it happens. Maybe I can touch up on number 2 and number 3 more. So catastrophe. In Japan, this heavy flood in 1976. So this river levee breached, not overtopping, just broken by seepage flow, and the entire town was inundated. This is another example of heavy rain, 800 millimeter in 6 hours, and the mountain slope fell down and destroyed the village at the bottom. Problem was that heavy rain likely occurs at midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. This is just a common trend nowadays. When air temperature is low at high altitude and rain is easily produced over there. So midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., this is a difficult time for evacuation. You may call your friend, hey, heavy rain is coming, flood is coming, please go to safe place. But your friend is very sleepy, he doesn't want to come out of the bed. He says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sleepy, I'll get up at 7 o'clock and then I'll go, it's too late. Flood comes at 6 a.m. So this is a big problem. We insist on evacuation, we insist on warning, but midnight is a very bad time to go out of home. In Japan, Kyushu Island is suffering disasters every year, 2017, 20, and this year as well. This is a consequence of a disaster. 2017, can you see this bucket? Actually, water came to this level. Also, you can see another landslide site in the same photograph. So risk aversion. How to avoid the risk? Actually, problem is like this. But over there, you can see fortunate families, houses over there, because they are living at high places. This is a typical way of risk aversion. However, the problem is very often good places are already occupied by old families. Newcomers have to stay at low elevations. This is a problem. For example, nursing home for handicapped or aged citizens. Such a facility has to stay in disaster-prone sites because good places are already occupied. Landslide. Okay, this is a famous empirical diagram between volume of landslide in horizontal axis and what is called H over L. H is the height of the landslide. L is the horizontal distance of landslide run out. So L is the distance of mass movement. So there are many range of H over L, but engineering judgment says that 0.5 is a typical number. So let's say H over L is 0.5 for design and disaster management. This means L is 2 times H. So we have this type of regulations. When unstable cliff is like this, height is h, landslide occurs, travel distance L is say 2 times h. So you should live at the distance more than 2 times the cliff height. This is also an example of aversion. So this is a governmental regulation in Japan. Say reduction is also a common practice among engineers. So the dam is very famous. This dam to stop this flood and debris flow. This is another type of dam. What's the difference? The first one is the old type. Everything is stopped by this dam. So dam is quickly filled up with debris and soil after one disaster. But this one is made of slit. Only big rocks and timbers are stopped, like this. So after such a disaster, we can remove timbers, rocks, then we can use this dam once more for future disasters. So this is type of new idea is more economical than old type dams. So dam is anyhow traditional good measure, good idea, but construction cost is high. It takes a long time for planning. Then political arguments starts, design, and then construction. So nowadays, environmentalists are strongly against dam construction. They say nature is destroyed by new dam. Local say fish cannot survive anymore because of dam construction. Also, dam cannot store water beyond the reservoir capacity. So before the rainfall is coming, dam has to start storing water sufficiently before heavy rain, but not too early. So nowadays, it's very difficult to foresee time of peak rainfall because of climate change. Things are changing. So this is a site of planned dam in Kyushu Island, Japan. Planning started in 1966. How many years ago? 55 years ago, but no progress because political arguments continued for 50 years. Only after disaster in 2020, local politics started to change in favor of the dam, just in favor, but not conclusively. So dam construction takes a long time. So alternative idea is certainly levees. So levee is cheaper in construction, but we have to be careful about maintenance. Also, levee is prone to erosion if overtopped by water. Also, seepage flow under the levee can trigger loss of soil and piping failure. So certainly you have to keep maintenance efforts periodically. But nowadays, probably global climate change is increasing the rainfall. This means water level in the river is getting higher and higher. So we have to raise the height of levees, but it's very difficult to make the levee higher by 1 meter, 2 meters, because, okay, suppose you make higher levee at one section, so no overtopping at one side. The local people may be happy, but no overtopping at one side sends more water downstream. So in the downstream regions, risk becomes higher. So local people start fighting. Don't send us flood to downstream villages, like this. Just a moment. Wife is noisy. She's cooking. Okay. there are several difficulties in raising levy height. Okay, how can we do this? Yeah, in Japanese government rule, slope gradient is under strict control. Don't make steep slopes for stability. Also, we should not reduce the channel cross section. Higher or steeper gradient reduces the cross section of the river channel during flood. Then why don't you do this? Certainly, it's difficult to purchase private land over kilometers, not 10 meters, not only for one family. We have to purchase land over kilometers. So decades needed for this. Then, what about this one? Concrete wall inside the levee. Good idea? In numerical analysis on seepage flow, concrete wall is a very good idea because permeability through concrete is very small. And then we can just put soil like this. Very good idea. But we have a big problem. New Orleans, 2005, had a problem caused by this type of structures. Actually, concrete wall and soil moved in a different manner. Cracks opened. Water came into the levee, and finally, levee was destroyed. This New Orleans after disaster. So this is a new wall, new levee after reconstruction, but still U.S. engineers prefer to use concrete wall inside the levee. Wall moved during the flood, underwater pressure, cracks opened between concrete and levee soil, and water seepage started. That was the lesson. So alternative to raising levee height, why don't you excavate the riverbed like this? Good idea? Effective? But now environment is very important. Excavation damage the river fish and the insects. Certainly it's irrelevant or too costly for rocky base rock, not allowed around bridge piers. So continuous excavation is not possible. This is example of scouring around the railway bridge. So we are now Japan has such a problem very often. Piers or lost, bridge fell down like this, also like this. So retention basin, okay, flood water is stored for some time in the reservoir. On your left-hand side, there is a river. On your right-hand side, there is just agricultural land, farmland. So during high water, river water comes into this retention basin, and next day, river water decreases, and water goes back. So this is a good idea. Certainly, there are problems. Yeah, crops may be damaged during water retention. Okay, government pay some financial compensation to settle down the problem. This is okay. Also, it's interesting that rice can survive underwater for 1 day or so. Rice is very strong against water. So environmentally, this is good. But certainly negotiation with local community is important. Needs big area without inhabitants, we can manage this. And certainly retention basin cannot help the upstream areas. It can help downstream areas only. So this is a limitation. So risk transfer is number 3 choice. Okay, insurance. Don't purchase real estates, just rent them. But emergency evacuation is important. So the last choice is risk retention. It means live life with risk. So we should know how dangerous your area is. Such a map is called hazard map. Government should prepare good hazard map. Also, monitoring of water level in the river is important. Evacuation order is important if this disaster is occurring soon. Or business continuity planning. What to do if disaster happens. So company managers should have idea about emergency actions. Hazard map is not almighty. This is Hitoyoshi City, Kyushu Island, Japan. Last year, disaster happened like this. Okay, still I was able to see garbage at the top of this pole. So water came to these elevations. So this is a hazard map of the city. This was made before the disasters. Blue part, it was supposed to be inundated. Actually, real flood area was much bigger than hazard map. So some people believe that hazard map is correct. Hazard map predicts the future disaster. No. Hazard map is just drawn based on design disaster. Real disaster may be more powerful than idea. But people don't know this. This is the problem. Heavy rain is increasing in the 21st century because of maybe climate change. So we have to know. Also in the mountain areas, okay, this is an example in Tokyo. In these mountain areas, yellow area is supposed to be landslide prone areas. So this is a hazard map. So this is very interesting because all the parts of this town is covered by yellow colors. There's no place to live anymore. So I have to say that this landslide hazard is an overestimations. But we have to, or engineers and the government officers has to overestimate disaster in such situations. We don't have to be precise. We should overestimate the disaster. Why? Because officers and engineers do not like false negative mistake. What is false negative? False negative means they say, okay, no problem, yes. Then disaster happens. If such a mistake is made, then people get very angry, become rageous, and start fighting against you. You are accused by public and media. It's not good. So for self-protection, risk has to be overestimated. High risk everywhere. No place to live. Don't worry about it. You are safe. Then people decide not to care the overestimated hazard map because they have to remain in their hometown. They don't care it. Don't worry. Warning was issued many times in the past, but nothing ever happened. This is called normalcy bias. Don't care. So this is a problem of hazard mapping. So I would like to say that false negative should be accepted by people. But now the media already try to accuse public sectors. So officers, public sectors, engineers have to protect themselves. This is a very unfortunate situation. So I'm pushing this technology for risk retention. This is early warning to detect minor ground deformation, landslide, before the final catastrophe. So this is a simple issue, just installed in the mountain area. And when mountain slope starts moving slowly during heavy rain, rotation occurs. These tilting angle sensors send some signal through internet to your office in Delhi or Mysore or Tokyo or London or any place. Just signal transmission is easy everywhere. And then we can issue warning and evacuation order. So this is a summary of the past experiences in many countries, Japan, China, Taiwan, and Bhutan, India also, and then where? New Zealand, sorry, Australia, and soon in Brazil. Horizontal axis is the rotation rate, how many degrees rotation occurs per hour. Vertical axis is the time until final failure. So we have this relationship. If the rotation is 0.1 degree per hour, then in the vertical axis, we have 3 hours until landslide. So we try to escape within 3 hours of safety. So it has been installed on more than 200 sites. So good idea. It's a good idea to notice 3 hours before a landslide. To whom should we notify the danger? Certainly not wise to notify people directly because they may get panicked. So we should communicate with local government. Then problem is heavy midnight rainfall. It's dangerous, ridiculous to go out for evacuation in dark midnight. Stay on the upper floor of home. This is the official advice in Japan. Don't go out. Stay on the second floor, first floor, second floor, upper floor of home, and on the opposite side of cliff, like this. Orange part is considered safe. But this year, Japan learned a bad lesson. This idea may not work. Entire houses were destroyed by debris flow. So wherever you may stay, there's no safe place anymore. Also, in this example, last month, the debris flow came down and directly attacked the first floor here and came out of these windows. So residents are killed. So even higher floor is not a safe place. That's a very bad lesson. So this example, tsunami terrible. No way to survive. So how to handle earthquake risk? Risk aversion. We should avoid poor soil conditions. You may know about this because soft soil makes bigger soil amplification of ground shaking. Or cancel project. Reduction means reduction is a good but more expensive earthquake resistant design and construction. Transfer means insurance. Retention means just ignore, forget. Go to business continuity plan. So what is the reality of risk aversion? This Kobe hit by earthquake in 1995. So just think about this cross section from the sea to the mountain. This cross section, borehole data is plotted. On your right hand side, there are green soils. Green color means soft soil near the sea. And over here, damage was severe. Near the mountain, at higher elevations, soil is made of gravelly materials. Color is red. So damage was very rare. So this is a clear evidence of the effects of local soil conditions on damage extent. So certainly, you should choose good ground condition and go there. This is very, very possible, not difficult. But we need to avoid catastrophe. Okay, here I'm talking about reduction. So reduction follows this way of thinking. First, we should decide on design earthquake, how strong should it be? Then to make this decision, we need to know the local seismic activity. Is your the province seismically active or very quiet? To get this knowledge, we need the long history of earthquake observations. Then we can develop some probabilistic scenario. But the real earthquake may be stronger than design, as you know. So, but we have to try to avoid catastrophe. Then good design is important. Today, I'd like to mention the importance of quality of construction. Material should be important. Good technology has to be good. Otherwise, poor construction makes good design nonsense. Good design is good, but construction quality is poor. Then results is very bad. Building collapse in Kobe, like this. Many structures, modern structures, totally destroyed. This is the good example of collapse because the real earthquake was stronger than the design level. So always ask yourself, what would happen if natural disaster was stronger than the design level? Don't just be happy with factor of safety greater than 1. So structures have to fully survive frequent earthquakes. Okay, once every 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, structures have to be strong enough. But it's too costly to design buildings so that it fully survive rare events once every 500 years, once every 2,000 years. Such a rare event, it's too costly to resist against such a rare event. So now, such a philosophy, 2 levels of design earthquakes. Level 1, that may occur once in the lifetime of structure, maybe in 50 years. For such a frequent event, no damage should happen. No plastic deformation should happen. But level 2, that is rare. We allow some damage, some deformation, but no catastrophe should happen. Nobody should be killed. That's the philosophy. Then the question is, what to do if level 2 earthquakes occur twice, once every 1,000 years, may occur immediately, one after another. This question looked nonsense 5 years ago, but now Japan is serious. In 2016, this happened. Kumamoto, 2016. 2 level 2 rare events happened on April 14th and then 16th. Interval was only 28 hours. So the first level 2 earthquake caused plastic deformation, some damage, and weakened the structures. Then next day, second level 2 happened. It easily devastated the town. So there was a discussion what to do, but finally building engineers gave up to do anything about such an extreme situation. No way to consider the sequence in design. Retention by business continuity plan. We give up earthquake resistant design, but still we try to be prepared against big earthquake. For example, maybe you can have 2 headquarters of your company. At least one of them can survive. Emergency team should live near the office, and response should start quickly. Don't distribute your important emergency people one in Delhi, one in Mumbai, one in Calcutta. It's not a good idea. They cannot start quick action. and also spend extra money on just on safety of core section of the building. Don't care the entire building, but at least one important section should survive the earthquake. And many others. So Tokyo Disneyland had a good example of business continuity plan in during 2011 big Tohoku earthquake. This Disneyland was situated in the Urayasu city where liquefaction happened intensively like this. Actually, I have never been to Disneyland in Tokyo. I hate that place because everything is expensive there. So as an alternative, I visited Disneyland in Los Angeles, USA. So this is a picture over there. But anyhow, idea is similar. This is Urayasu city. Red part had a liquefaction problem. Blue part had no liquefaction problem. Liquefaction consequence is like this: subsidence of ground surface, gas pipeline, water pipeline, sewage pipeline were destroyed by this differential settlement. Disneyland is here. Disneyland in Tokyo was very, very smart. Although liquefaction happened, Disneyland was constructed on reasonably compacted sand. Company knew about the risk 40 years ago. So it spent some money on construction, on compaction of soil or densification of soil. So no damage. Only parking lot did not have any soil improvement. So liquefaction did happen, but it's just parking lot. They just brought asphalt and overlaid the surface again. So restoration was very quick. Business started in only 6 weeks after the earthquake. So I believe that the Tokyo Disneyland is a good example of business continuity plan. The problem is also compound effect. Some people just talk about the earthquake, other people talk about the rainfall, but actually we have chain of disasters. Alaska earthquake, landslide in the sea, and the tsunami. This is called compound effects, and it's important mechanism of disaster during extreme rare event. So again, imagination is important to foresee and to prepare for what would happen. So need for maintenance efforts. I'd like to say that maintenance is very important. If you don't care maintenance, then infrastructures get decayed with time. Resistance against natural disaster decreases every year. Finally, you have trouble. This is an example in Japan. This collapse of expressway was caused by earthquake. Design is good. No earthquake damage should have happened in 2009. But problem is this soil conditions. There was a valley here, and cut and fill method made this ground surface, and then expressway was constructed. Geology was made of mudstone, and this valley means groundwater came in continuously. So because of this water, this mudstone fill had the problem of slaking and deteriorations. So mudstone gravel just became mud after, say, 30 years. So this highway embankment, #1 highway of Japan, was very weak against this earthquake and fell down very easily. So this is a picture of ongoing restoration. You can recognize fill part in the front and cut part at far distance.
Tohota Sensei, can I
Yes,
request
yes.
you to
To
5
finish
minutes?
it.
You can
5 minutes, okay, 5 minutes, okay.
Okay.
Now this is important part.
I know.
Okay,
Please,
okay.
please.
Okay. Thank you very much for the reminder. Yeah. Lack of maintenance effort. This is a picture in India. I'm sorry to say that India should be more careful about maintenance. USA made a same mistake. Bridge collapse started 40 years after construction. They say they did not spend money on maintenance. So structure became weaker. So let me skip this. Actually, okay. So now India has a construction booming. It's a top of this curve. It's a lot of business. But after some stage, okay, this is also number of construction employees. You cannot reduce the number of employees, although business may decrease. So actually, you should, or everybody should, every country should spend more money on maintenance and maintain the salary money for a longer time. This deterioration of Japanese bridge, also Japanese expressway in Tokyo, infrastructures became weaker and weaker with time. This collapse of bridge in Japan, actually this portion or anchorage deteriorated and collapsed. So maintenance very important. This is collapse of road pavement because of the deterioration of sewage pipeline. So lots of soil just moved into this pipe and disappeared. This is Indian concrete technology. Maybe you know this. I took this picture in India. Actually, quality of construction is a problem. Design may be good, but quality is not good. Then problem occurs. So to control the disaster, I believe that the construction quality maintenance efforts are very important. Yeah, there are many pictures of this type. So let me skip. So life cycle cost is a good idea. Life cycle cost means initial construction cost plus maintenance cost damaged by natural disaster and demolition. Idea is like this. Horizontal axis initial construction cost, okay, plus maintenance cost. You spend more construction cost, then maintenance cost decreases because quality is good. Damage cost also decreases. No damage happens if the structure is very good in quality and demolition. So we add all together, and this is called life cycle cost. Life cycle cost minimum is the best choice. This is the idea. Please consider this. The last issue, empirical human wisdom. This is Japan. 15 years ago. Landslide happened everywhere during earthquake. Here. But people, the house, were always out of these landslide areas. Probably people knew which place is dangerous after 1,000-year history. This is Bhutan. In the center, the new houses. Old houses are there. Probably old people used to live in safe place. Now new people don't know which place is dangerous. So they live at the center of this area. So summary. Risk assessment was introduced in systematic manner. Uncertainty is a problem. More efforts needed for soil investigation. But subsoil conditions, very uncertain, too uncertain for probabilistic theory. Extreme event disasters and compound disasters are important. But before theory, do more efforts for construction quality and maintenance. Life cycle cost, human wisdom important. So thank you very much for your patience. That's the end of my talk today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tohata Sensei, Professor Tohata. As usual, it was excellent, flamboyant, and lot of information. And basically, you make things so simple. Your solutions are very practical, very easily, achievable solutions. I presume Professor Chandan Ghosh is also around. And I also presume Lieutenant Colonel Vashishta is there. So it's a pleasure to have all of
Yes,
you
yes.
here. Yeah, It's a pleasure to have all of you here. Professor Tauhata, there have been a few questions for you. Anyway, before that, I just want to ask you, you showed it, a number of places that during 1970s and 2000, natural disasters were, in the minimal, less effect. But, whether it is earthquake, whether it is heavy rainfall, after 2000, things have changed. Do you think it is global warming? It is our, population not being under control, or anyway, environmental pollution? What is the major reason for this?
It's a very difficult question. First, I'm not the expert of that area. First, I introduced that the earthquake energy changes in 70s, 80s, 90s. That's minimal. That's not related with global climate change at all, because the problem is earthquake.
Okay.
And rainfall. Rainfalls. Well, as far as I know, rainfall intensity is getting higher and higher nowadays. And so possibly my diagram is related with that issue, global climate change. But some people say against that. It's just say variations in the recent 30 years, 40 years. So I cannot say anything definitely. But actually, during that period, actually the size of damage, disaster decreased continuously. Rainfall was getting stronger, but the disaster size was getting smaller and smaller. So I feel very much against those people who say, "Hey, global climate change is bringing more bigger disasters." But they don't care. No, they don't look at the data. But data shows that actually size of the disaster decreasing because everywhere engineers, governments are making lots of efforts to control the disasters. So the policy is working. Just it's not enough, not yet.
Okay, because interestingly, in Japan itself, we know 2011 earthquake was perhaps the biggest magnitude-wise, and then you showed that Hitoyoshi's flood. It was perhaps much bigger than whatever was the design flood level. So sometimes it's interesting to believe what people say about environmental pollution, global warming. Professor Tauhata is not in the scene. Professor Kanmani?
Sir, small technical issue, sir. Wait.
Technical issue. Okay. In the meantime, Professor Chandan Ghosh is here. Also, Tauhata Sensei is back. Okay. Anyway, Tauhata Sensei, please be introduced to Professor Chandan Ghosh of NIDM.
Yeah,
And
nice to meet you.
He has he has two PhDs, one from IIT Kanpur and another from Ibaraki University.
I see.
So he has
Yes,
no
sir,
relation to Japan.
I know. Also IIT Kanpur.
Yes. He worked with Professor
Ibaraki
Madhav for his
Daigaku.
doctorate.
Hitachi.
Oh, I know Chandra. Sarvesh Chandra.
Sarvesh, right.
We were there in we had a lot of time in Goa conference. Long back.
Anyway, also we have Lieutenant Colonel Vashishta here. So thank you very much, sir, for joining. I'll just ask a few questions from participants. One is from Mr. Rajashekar. I'll just read the questions inside.
Yes.
He's from VIT Vellore. Will the heavy flood lead to change in seismic layers of the location, which may lead to earthquake? So he says, because of heavy floods, seismicity in an area, is there any possibility of change in seismicity?
Well, first, earthquake is a problem. Kilometers below the surface, Earth's interior. Flood is a problem at the ground surface. So basically, there is not much interaction. So that's the idea. But that always there is very interesting studies. Some people, Japan seismologists, found that number of small micro tremors, micro earthquakes increases during rain, after rain. Possibly because groundwater level becomes higher after rain, pore water pressure increases, effective stress in the Earth's interior decreases, and shear strength in fault decreases, and earthquake happens. But fortunately, those earthquakes are very, very small. But India has good knowledge about induced seismicity. The dam, what's the name of the dam? Near Ratnagiri, near after Pune. I visited that place.
Oh, you talked Koina Dam. You're talking
Koina
about
Dam, yeah.
Okay.
But Koina Dam is not because of rainfall. But anyhow, rain triggers micro tremors. But don't worry too much about that. What's the next question?
This is from Professor Afzal Ali Beg, Principal of Alim College of Engineering in Chennai. He wants to know some of the latest methods to calculate flood estimate with a computer simulation analysis.
It's good. There are good people around me. They're really proud of rainfall prediction and calculation flood level. So, but I'm not a good expert.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Professor Tauhata. I think Professor Chandan Ghosh, you can take 1 minute because we are already running late, and then 1 minute for Professor Umesh. So Professor Chandan Ghosh, you can speak for a minute.
It is such a nice opportunity to have Tohata Sensei. He is having so much of knowledge and wisdom, and whenever you see that he is very much sharp and very much to the point. Just now, even a professor of that level, he is saying that there are so many computer scientists are there. They are working on flood level estimation. And yes, that is the humbleness, and that is the true spirit of Japanese. I would say that how they define their specific positions in the society and in our field. That what they don't know, they say that I don't know, and which is otherwise very much different in our case. We say that we know everything.
So you are very right, and we have experienced that, both of you, both you and myself in Japan. So my sincere thanks to every one of you. And very quickly, Dr. Umesh, you would like to say something? You are muted, Dr. Umesh.
So Dr. Tohata is nicely explained the geo disaster or the management and of earthquake, as well as due to floods and rainfall, etc. He has given a very clear picture to the audience. I would like to thank him for his nice lecture. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Prasad has my PowerPoint file. In small size. So
Thank you.
You can distribute it among.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you.
Anthony, arigatou gozaimashita.
My
it
pleasure.
was very, very interesting, and we look forward to having you more often in our such programs, Sensei. Thank you very much. Domo.
My pleasure.
Domo arigatou.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Finish.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I will keep in touch with you, and you're most welcome to
Ooty.
Definitely, Sensei. We will go to Ooty together. We'll definitely go to Ooty together.
Yeah.
I'll keep in touch with you.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Thank you. And then, we are already little late. Professor Kanmani, please do take
Yeah.
over. And
Thank you, sir.
Lieutenant Colonel,
Sir is waiting for us.
Vasishta,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah.
please do start your
Okay.
presentation.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks to all the professors. I request Manoj, sir, to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. As we have come to the end of the first lecture on online training program on fundamentals of disaster management, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, Visvesvaraya College of Engineering, Mysuru, and National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi, I convey my sincere thanks to the speaker, Dr. Ikuwa Tohata, Professor, University of Tokyo, Japan, for sharing his knowledge and wonderful experience. I thank Dr. Chandan Ghosh, Professor, NIDM, for his encouragement in organizing this event. I thank Lieutenant Colonel Vasishta for gracing this event. My sincere thanks to Dr. Umesha PK Sir, Professor and Chairman, Research Studio VVCE. I wholeheartedly thank Dr. S.K. Prasad Sir, Professor and Head, for his continuous support and motivation in organizing such events. I also thank organizing committee members of NIDM as well as VVCE, Civil Department, for organizing this event. Further, I wish to thank all the participants for your active participation in this session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Manoj, sir. I request all the participants to join us in our next session of the day 1, session 2 on disaster management by Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandra Vasishta, sir, Joint Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India, New Delhi. I once again welcome the speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandra, sir, to the session 2. Welcome you, sir. I welcome all the panelists, Dr. S.K. Prasad, sir, Dr. Chandan, sir, and Dr. Umesha, sir, to the session. I say no one requires an introduction about such a great personality from NIDM, one of the true benchmark of excellence in India, but still in short. Let us listen about Lieutenant Colonel D.C. Vasishta, sir, for which I invite Ms. Sanjana Raj, finally a student of our department, to introduce sir to us. Over to you, Sanjana.
Thank you, Kanmani ma'am. Good afternoon. Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandra Vasishta is presently the Joint Director of National Institute of Disaster Management. He was commissioned into an Army Ordnance Corps in September 2000. Lieutenant Colonel Dinesh Chandra Vasishta is a supply chain management professional with over 20 plus years of experience in managing the entire gamut of supply chain grid. The officer has excelled academically with master's degree in management apart from logistics management course with specialization in ammunition and other warlike stores. The officer has command an ordnance unit of prestigious strike corps of Indian Army and have exposure on various command and staff duties in all types of operations and terrain. It is indeed an honor for me introducing you to the audience, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Sanjana. And before I hand over the session to Vasishta, sir, I have few things to tell to our participants. I remind you again, if you have any queries to ask our speakers, you can post them in the chat box along with your name and location. Those questions will be taken by our panelists after the presentation. And the feedback along with the quiz question links will be posted in the chat box. As you already know, first session link has been already posted. Kindly give your valuable feedback for each session. So dear participants, kindly note that the e-certificates will be issued to those who have registered in NIDM portal and on submission of all session feedbacks. Now, without a further ado, I request Lieutenant Colonel D.C. Vasishta, sir, to handle the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Kanmani, ma'am, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on the disaster management and its aspects, related aspects, the fundamentals and the basics of disaster management, and how do we actually manage the disasters. So since we had gone through a lecture from Dr. Engineer Ikuwa Tohata from University of Tokyo, So he has already touched upon the geo-disaster management of earthquakes, and he has given a special emphasis on the Japanese technology and the Japanese way of managing the disasters. But how do we manage in India, and what are the processes and the procedures in which all departments are actually looking at? So I would like the audience to know about it, since in the past, this pandemic has struck 2 years back. So we have heard a lot about disaster management, the Disaster Management Act, central government getting into the disasters, Prime Minister Modi coming on TV and he's speaking on the management of the pandemic, corona management, the Home Minister coming in, and various other dignitaries. They give in a press brief what is the corona and what is its status. How does it follow? How does the Prime Minister comes into picture? How does the MHA comes into picture? What all departments are all there which are looking after the disaster management in central government, in state government, and what is there at the district level as we are sitting in some of the other districts when we are listening to this topic. So to start with the basic organization which is handling the disasters, how they are handled, what all are the part of the DM Act, in a nutshell, I will try to cover it. For this, I will share my screen. As we all know that we are into corona period, corona times, and this is mandatory that we follow all these 5 principles as given on the view foil. Wear your mask properly, wash your hands with soap and water, avoid touching, keep social distance, clean surface regularly. We all know that corona is here. We are all into corona period, and we are into the second year when the corona is with us. And soon, if we follow all these 5 principles, we will definitely be out from corona. Though the vaccines are taken up the pace which the government always desired, now we are into a phase when corona has taken off, started going out from India. But however, we will be following these principles.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm extremely sorry to interrupt. Your presentation is not switched on, sir. Kindly switch on the slideshow, sir.
How do I switch on that?
Just a minute, sir. Our technicians will help you for that. Yeah, you can start sharing.
Balaji, are you listening? Balaji? I can see my presentation from here, so I don't know.
You have to share the screens. Yeah, Avinash, take over.
So please share your PPT.
Share screen, and
yes,
then do I share the entire screen with you?
Yes, sir, your PPT
window.
Full screen, do the full screen. That is why they have done that.
No, it was full screen. Is it okay? Is it visible?
Sir. Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir, in the bottom, I have to select slideshows. Otherwise, press F5, sir, F5 button.
F5 button.
No. Is not coming, sir. It's only presentation. We can see your PPT file. We are not able to see the slideshow.
I press the F5 button.
Yes, sir. Function F5, sir. Do you have?
Sir, kindly share the entire screen, sir. Entire screen.
Yeah, it has been shared. My entire screen has been shared. Wait a minute, sir. I'll help you. Sir, am I audible? Sir,
yes.
Yes, again, please share your PPT, sir. It has been disconnected.
So click on share, sir. Excuse me, sir. Click on share. Share screen.
Yes.
And choose entire screen.
Share your PPT, sir. It has been disconnected.
Okay.
So click on share, sir. Excuse me. Click on share. Share screen. Yes. Choose entire screen.
अभी वो PPT open करो. अभी full screen कर दो.
Is it okay? Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Now it's
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's on slideshow, so now you can continue.
Now it's coming, sir.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. Sorry for missing out a few lines. And since we are into Corona phase and prevention is anything, it's better than cure. No carelessness until there is a cure. Though we are into vaccination phase, but still we must follow all these 5 principles as seen in the view foil. Disaster management. What does disaster management per se in terms of Government of India? So I put this government emblem, NIDM, the logo, and the Resilient India, Disaster Free India is our motto. Management of disasters, I will cover it very fast because we are short of time, and the next speaker is waiting because of the time shortage. I will clear all the doubts, but I will go a little fast while telling the things.
Sorry
So
to interrupt.
until 2001, the responsibility was with Ministry of Agriculture in the central government. But there were 2 committees which were set up in August 99 prior to Risa super cyclone, and under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister in February 2001 after the Gujarat earthquake. There were 2 major incidents which struck India, major disaster which struck India in these 2 years. So the responsibility was transferred to MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, because there was a lot of loss of life and property. So this matter was taken as the internal security matter, and the responsibility was shifted to Ministry of Home Affairs, and now Ministry of Home Affairs since June 2002 is looking after the affairs of the disaster management directly. National Disaster Management Authority was established under the executive orders in September 2005, and in December 2005 the DM Act was passed. So DM Act is a very powerful act, as we all have heard about it in the recent past, that the DM Act has been invoked. DM Act has been invoked in one way or the other in various states. Like there was a lockdown, this was also under the DM Act. So everything is stated in that under this DM Act. So it's quite a powerful act whenever there is a disaster. So this act comes into force, and the government empowers various authorities to take decisions, directions on this DM Act. There were many financial things which are also rolled out after this DM Act gets invoked. This is a national vision to build a safer and disaster resilient India by developing a holistic, proactive, multi-disaster oriented and technology driven strategy through a culture of prevention, mitigation, prevention and response. So as this view foil says, this is our national vision which has been given by the Government of India to us, that we should have a holistic, proactive, without waiting for this, we should have our mitigation strategies, we should have our prevention measures in place, we should have our development of the capacities to a measure that we should be able to fight various disasters, that is multi-disaster oriented, that like in case we have floods, we have landslides, we have various disasters, the man-made and the natural disaster. So our strategy should be aimed to fight any or to respond to any type of disasters, and this entire process should be technology driven, and the strategy should be aimed to include the technology, how fast the flow of information is on the various aspects of disasters, be it the inventory management during the disasters, be it the availability of the criticalities, be it the availability of the resources. At the district level, we empower up to the district level, to the village level, to the taluka level in entire India. So the state empowers itself and the center monitors everything staying at Delhi through Ministry of Home Affairs. So these are the salient aspects of the Disaster Management Act which I would like to highlight here, because we are just taking a broader look of the DM Act and the broader look of the DM disaster management. So there was a shift in the now when the holistic and integrated approach is there, because all the stakeholders are now part of this disaster management, be it the district disaster management authority, or the state disaster management authority, or at the center level, the national disaster management authority. So this is one organization. Other organizations which are actually responding to the disasters, they are all formulating, they are all integrated and under this DM Act. This is backed by an institutional framework, and it has been given a legal authority as the DM Act, supported by the financial mechanism, creation of new funds like the response fund and the mitigation fund. NDMA was set up as the apex body to look after the disaster management, and it is the authority which gives out rules, policies on the disasters. It is headed by the Honorable Prime Minister as its chairperson at the central level. it is at all three levels: national level, state level, and the district level. The National Executive Committee secretaries from the 14 ministries have been given charge in this, has been put in this National Executive Committee, which looks after the disasters. And the Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, because the Ministry of Defense through the CIDS is functioning as the executive of this committee at NDMA. So at the district level, state level, and the national level, so these are the various authorities. Central Ministry will continue with nodal responsibilities, whatever the responsibilities as part of the central ministry. Like Ministry of Finance would look after the finances. However, the entire control would be from the Ministry of Home Affairs. So the Ministry of External Affairs, when there is an association, cooperation, or the grants or aids, so that ministry comes into existence. So all the central ministries, whatever the role they have been entrusted with, they will be nodal responsibility would be at the central level, though MHA would be controlling all the activities. NDMA would provide guidance, coordination, synergy, policy, rules, regulations, everything on the disaster management aspects. At the state level, we have State Disaster Management Authority. You might have all have heard. It is headed by the Chief Minister. State Executive Committee, again, we have a National Executive Committee. Now it is the State Executive Committee under the Chief Secretary of the state, and they will coordinate, monitor, implement the national policy given by the NDMA national plans, and the state plans would be made as per the directions received from the central government through NDMA. The district level, the District Disaster Management Authority is headed by the District Magistrate. Chairperson of the Zilla Parishad as the co-chairperson for this DDMA. Interface between the government and public. It means that the district level is the last which is given the authorities under this act to monitor the activities at the district level through district magistrates. Agencies which are monitoring apart from the above listed under the DM Act are the NDRF. They are the first responders. They are the responders. You might have heard always that 2 battalions, 2 companies of NDRF has moved during this cyclone from this place to that place once the cyclone warning is there, or whenever there is a disaster occurs. So this is the responsibility of National Disaster Relief Force. Response Force, sorry, they are culled out from the paramilitary forces, the Central CAPF, Central Paramilitary Armed Paramilitary Forces, that is BSF, CRPF, and others like ITBP and other police forces under the central government. And we at National Institute of Disaster Management, we have been given a role under the DM Act to build the capacity and various other research and other measures to be suggested to the government in mitigation, prevention, and other levels of the disaster management. There is a 3-tier response system at the national level in case of a disaster strike. So this is the response system which has been given in the DM Act. NDRF, which would be the Central Armed Police Forces and other central agencies, as and when required, they will be first responders at the national level. The state level, their battalions are all located across India. NDRF teams are located across India. Then the state level, they have SDRF, the State Disaster Relief Response Forces, and other agencies. At the district level, we have various authorities which have been entrusted with this task, with the civil administration, local police, civil defense, fire and emergency services, home guards, etc. Also the local communities, NGOs, and the voluntary organizations. You might have found out that there are many organizations which they come forward during the times of disasters and at the district level or the taluka levels. Overall strategy is revolving under these 7 pillars, as has been shown in the view foil. Has been divided into 2 phases of any disaster: pre-disaster phase and the post-disaster phase. The preventions, basically, how to prevent any disaster. So for that, as we have heard the past speaker on the earthquake, floods, and the rainfalls. So how do we, this is part of the prevention process, that we should be made aware and what should be the best to be done. Like he was showing a picture of the buildings with cracks. So the kind of construction should improve. So these are called preventive measures. So this all is, and at the national level, the prevention is at much higher level, that the earthquake resistant buildings, the Ministry of Urban Affairs, they come up with various policies on averting disasters, green building concepts, and all. They are all part of this prevention phase of disaster. Then the mitigation, how do we build the capacity? How do we mitigate the disasters? So all these plans are made at the central level. We at NIDM are part of the capacity building and research on the mitigation process of the disaster management. Preparedness, we should, as I speak today, I'm making you aware. So we are preparing you for getting into any disaster or responding to any disaster situation or any emergency situation, that you should be aware that what all agencies are formulating and how do I prepare myself for getting into a situation which calls for an emergency or a disaster. Capacity building, now we have NDRFs, SDRFs, the community development groups, the NCC, so all these are part of the capacity building measures which the central government has given us and mandated. Community-based disaster management. Disaster management is the public awareness which through various mediums, various formats, with newspaper, media, TV, community engagements, community conferences. So all these are part of the pre-disaster phase. At the post-disaster phase, we have rescue, relief, and rehabilitation. Prompt and efficient response is the major key to any responding to any disasters. So NDRF teams and others are formulating part of the rescue, relief, and rehabilitation measures through the central and the state government. The reconstruction and recovery then is surely they will follow after the rescue, relief, and rehabilitation. So the agencies like the urban development or the other government agencies, so they all formulate part of the reconstruction and recovery. Progress is being made in all aspects. You might have heard in past 2 years, disaster management has gone in everybody's head now that there's something which is known as disaster management, and how can we go in for what are our duties, responsibilities, what is central government doing, what is state government doing, and what is the district authorities are doing in disaster management. So these are the 7 pillars. So I now have given a basic framework of the disaster management, how at the central government we follow the basically the guidelines from the Government of India through the DM Act. So with this, I have finished with my little capsule on the framework of the disaster management. Any questions, anything, anybody at this stage? I would love to take. In case you have, you are through with this basic knowledge, so you can come up with any emails also to us. We'll be surely responding to that. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
And,
That was indeed an informative and interesting, even motivational session to all of us. We learned a lot on in understanding the 7 phases of disaster management and various central government committees and institutes which works behind the screen in rescuing us all in any case of disaster strikes. You people working in NIDM are really deserve to be the benchmark of excellence, sir. Thank you for that, sir. Now, just a gentle reminder to all the participants, you can post your questions in the chat box and give your valuable feedback provided in the chat box. Let me invite all the professors, Dr. Chandan Ghosh sir from NIDM, Dr. S.K. Prasad sir, and Dr. Umesha sir from VVCE. I request the professors to handle the session now. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Kanmani, and thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Vasishta, for giving insight about disaster management and NIDM's approach, objectives, and the way you are working on. And civil engineers, please note the 7 pillars which Lieutenant Colonel Sri Vasishta mentioned. In that, civil engineers have a very big role to play. Almost in each and every aspect of those 7 pillars, we have our roles to play, whether it is before the disaster, during and after the disaster. Therefore, keeping that in mind, if we feel that whatever the government is planning and whatever it is doing, and also hearing from Professor Tauhata that disasters are somehow on the increase, but the kind of act which we undertake, to control, will definitely bring the disastrous effects, catastrophic effects, as low as possible. Even during the present pandemic, I am very proud and happy that in India, things are very much under control at this point of time. So quickly, I request Professor Chandan Ghosh to, interact, and then let me see if there are some questions from anybody. At present, I don't see any question here. So, Professor Chandan Ghosh, would you like to say something?
Sir, I think I will tell. I think
Sir,
Professor
Chandan
Vasishtha has given a
not
very
here.
nice brief introduction about what is the responsibility of different levels, starting from central government to district level. I think he has nicely explained that one, and we should thank to him. And also that 7 pillars, I think that is very important for civil engineers. As you told also, that is a pre-disaster and after a post-disaster. That is very important. I think we should take care of that one. I would like to thank Professor Vasishtha for his nice lecture. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. So, thank you again from my side, sir. And we already have the next speaker. Therefore, without wasting much time, I once again thank and hand over to Professor Kanmani to do the necessary things.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Manoj.
Now I request Manoj sir, Professor Manoj sir, to propose vote of thanks to our JD sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. As we have come to the end of second lecture on online training program on fundamentals of disaster management, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Mysuru, and National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi, I convey my sincere thanks to the speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Vasishtha sir, Professor NIDM, for sharing his valuable knowledge and his experience. I also thank Dr. Chandan Ghosh, Professor NIDM, for his encouragement in organizing this event. My sincere thanks to Montu Bose sir for gracing this occasion. I thank Dr. Umesha PK sir, Professor and Chairman, Research Studio Club, VVCE. I wholeheartedly thank our beloved HOD, Dr. SK Prasad sir, for his continued support and motivation in organizing such events. I also thank organizing committee members of this event from NIDM and VVCE. Further, I wish to thank all the participants for your active participation in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Manoj sir. Now we are closing this session 2 of day 1. Dear participant friends, let us break for a few seconds to switch over to our next session on concepts and basics of disaster and introduction by Dr. Montu Bose, Assistant Professor, Department of Business and Administration, Business and Sustainability, Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi. Thank you all. Just we'll break for a few seconds. Thank you. Yes, Avinash. Yeah. Thank you. I request all the participants, once again, I welcome you all. I welcome the speaker, Dr. Montu Bose, sir, to the session. Welcome you, sir. I welcome all the panelists, Dr. SK Prasad, sir, Chandan, sir, and Umesha, sir, to the session. And I request Mr. Nishant, a final year student, to introduce Professor Montu Bose to the session. Over to you, Nishant.
Thank you, Kanmani Madam. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the pleasant duty of introducing the eminent speaker, Dr. Montu Bose sir. Dr. Montu Bose sir is an economist. His areas of expertise include health economics, health financing, public sector management, environmental health, sustainable health systems, and epidemiological transition. He has more than 5 years of teaching and 8 years of research experience. Before joining Terry School of Advanced Studies, he has also served at the University of Calcutta, University of Delhi, Jadavpur University, and Public Health Foundation of India, PHFI. Dr. Bose has published many papers in national and international journals and books. He has also presented papers in many national and international conferences, seminars, and symposia. He was the first Indian recipient of the prestigious GNHE Global Network for Health Equity Fellowship during 2013-2014. Thank you, sir.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Montubo, sir, just a minute, sir. We have something to say to our panelists and the participants. So before I hand over the session to you, I remind all the participants again that if you have any queries to ask our speaker, you can post them in the chat box along with your name and location. Those questions will be taken by our panelists after the presentation. And feedback along with the quiz question links will be posted in the chat box. As you know already, session 1 and session 2 feedbacks has already been posted in the YouTube chat box. Kindly give us your valuable feedback. So dear participants, kindly note that e-certificates will be issued to those who have registered in NIDM portal and on submission of all session feedbacks. Now I request Montubo sir to take over the session, sir. Over to you, sir. You can start presenting.
Thank you so much, madam, for nice introduction and giving me the opportunity. I would like to thank Vidyavardhan College of Engineering for their beautiful sessions and nice speakers they have arranged for all the sessions. So I'm really glad to be a part of it. So is my screen visible? Can anybody confirm, please?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Okay, so it's really we are going through a difficult time period. So and everywhere we could see that many people are suffering from different pandemic, not only because of corona, because there are many other issues people are facing day by day. So the sessions that I'm going to discuss here today is the basics of disaster and the concepts we must know, because during presentation of various other faculties, even including our Lieutenant Colonel Mr. Vasist was also talking about various concepts like prevention, mitigation, then preparedness, then response, rehabilitations, etc. So now I'm going to give you a formal idea that what this actually mean, because every literature has some particular concepts we need to know. So again, here we are going to discuss about the basic concepts of these particular definitions we are going to use. But let me tell you, I'm not going to bore you with some definitions only, because it's pre-lunch session, everybody is hungry, and I do try to do justice as much as possible to utilize your time. So without wasting much time, so let's directly move into the definition of disaster. So if we are talking about disaster, then of course it means something, that some big thing has happened. But how big is big? So to understand that magnitude of it, we need to define what is disaster. So in this case, the three basic principles all of us should know, that it has three particular characteristics. That means by definition, if we go that it is an occurrence that is disrupting the normal conditions. So this is first point, that has the power to disrupt our normal conditions. And then it has the second point, that is the level of suffering. That means the level of suffering caused by a disaster, it exceeds our capacity to adjust. After a disaster happened, the stain that is there, if it leaves if it exceeds the capacity to adjust our community or the society or a particular district or a particular country, state, whatever it is we are considering, if it exceeds our capacity to adjust any level of suffering, then it is disaster. Now, if we go by Oxford University's definition, that what is disaster, it talks about that an unexpected event that kills a lot of people or causes a lot of damage, that is disaster. But that again subjective, because we don't know what would be the number of people that or how many number of people are killed or how many people are facing problem. So to give a proper definition, World Disaster Report 2020 gives a holistic idea about it, that any incident or any disaster, any incidents which actually kills more than 10 people, or it actually affecting more than 100 people, then it is called disaster. So this is the holistic definitions we are going to also use for our whatever presentation we are going to share here. So there could be several different kinds of disaster we could see. So this disaster could be natural, it could be man-made, it could be some complex emergencies, it could be some pandemic-like situations also. Like to give you some examples, like natural disasters, like geophysical disaster, like earthquake. It could be hydrological, like flood. It could be climatological, like say cold wave or say heat wave. It could be meteorological, like cyclone, typhoon, tornado, anything like this. It could be biological, like different kind of disease pandemic, like malaria, or even COVID would also come under this category. Then the second one is man-made. It could be man-made like environmental degradation. It could be pollution, accidents. Accident is one of the major disaster made, which is man-made kind of thing. So now the next one is complex emergencies. It could be food insecurity, armed conflict, or displacement of populations. Like to give an example, Rohingya refugee problem, or Rohingya refugee crisis that is faced by the different parts of our not our country. It also Myanmar, Bangladesh also face the problem. So it is actually originated from Myanmar. So this is one could be a one type of complex emergencies. Then pandemic emergencies, there is no need to mention anything like this, because all of us are at home and holding these sessions online because of this pandemic only. So now, if we bifurcate this natural and man-made disaster into two another broad categories, which is a sudden occurrence and another one is progressive occurrence. Like sudden occurrence, like any heat wave or any cold wave or any earthquake would come under something which call the sudden occurrence natural disaster. Similarly, progressive occurrence of natural disaster could be landslide, it could be flood, it could be drought, it could be epidemic like thing. And human-made sudden occurrence of disaster could be, suppose, a explosion somewhere. It could be fire. It could be one accident. It could be the human-made sudden occurrence of disaster. And progressive occurrence of man-made disaster could be like war, economic or financial crisis. This would come under this category. So now, when we are talking about these issues, and we have seen our previous speakers, even coming 2 days, you would also attend many sessions, like you could attend the sessions from disaster mitigation by Major General Nayak. Then you have to also attend sessions on risk, vulnerability, and hazard by Brigadier Dr. Vinod Datta. So all these sessions you need to understand. To understand these sessions, you need to understand the basic concepts. What hazard actually mean? So official definition you need to understand. So hazard is actually one condition or event that has potential. So potential is very important term here, that it is the potential for causing injury, loss of life, or any damage to the property, our resources, our environment, our society. If anything like this is there, any condition or event like this which has the potential to do some loss of life or damage to our society like this, then it is called hazard. So until and unless a hazard become active, then it is only hazard. But once a hazard become active, then it is no longer a threat to us, it becomes a disaster. That means realization of hazard is the disaster. Now the next definition we should know, that is exposure. That is the situation of people, infrastructure, or housing production capacities, and the tangible or intangible, whatever tangible asset we have, like our houses, like our farmhouses, like our say any resources that we own. So all these tangible assets we have, if they are located in the hazard prone areas, then it is called exposure. Like all of you know that the entire Himalayan region is very earthquake prone areas. Like in this seismic zone, suppose you have purchased one beautiful 3 BHK house or one beautiful house there. So if you are asking by definition wise, your house is exposed to earthquake, that means it's located in the hazard prone area, so therefore it is called exposure. Now coming to the next definition, which is vulnerability. So this is inability to resist a hazard. Like whenever it rains, so we have umbrella to use. Whenever we have some cold wave, we if we have warm clothes, we use this. So these then we are not vulnerable to it. But suppose a tsunami is coming, suppose one cyclone is coming, then in that case we are unable. We are such a tiny people in front of this storm or flood or something like this, that we are unable to resist the hazard or to respond when this is actually become a disaster. Now, next one is capacity. This capacity actually talks about all the combinations. That means combinations of our strength, combination of our attributes, resources available with us as an organization or as a community or as a society, as a household, to manage and reduce the disaster risk and strengthen the resilience. So this is capacity. So when your all these strengths increases, then your capacity to become say manage or reduce the power of a disaster also lessens. So that means your capacity is increasing. So now the next definition you should understand in this case, which is disaster risk. Disaster risk is a potential risk, so it is not that which has already been happened. So disaster risk is potential loss of life, injury or destroyed or damaged asset which could occur if there is one disaster in a particular time period. That means disaster risk, as most of you are engineers, and you might know that disaster it's something called, there is a function of. So disaster risk is a function of hazard, exposure, vulnerability and capacity. So if all these four factors are there, then we can estimate the disaster risk. Now when it has already been occurred, that means a disaster has already been occurred, then during or after the disaster, we can calculate the disaster damage. That means if you have the physical or monetary value you can calculate for the damage caused by a disaster, it is called the disaster damage. Both the cases we use the more or less same formula to calculate the disaster damage and the disaster risk, which is nothing but the product of hazard, exposure and vulnerability, and it should be divided by the capacity of that particular region or unit. So that would give us the disaster risk or damage. Now, the 7 pillars that was just few minutes ago, Colonel Vasist was discussing. So I'm just going to give you some definitional aspect of those 7 pillars. Now, coming to the first one, that is the prevention. That is the measures to avoid existing and new disaster risk is known as prevention. That means you are trying to prevent that particular disaster. Suppose before cyclone, all of you know, we try to actually save those people who might be affected, who are living in the say seashore areas. So that is we are trying to make some preventive mechanism. So we all of us are wearing mask and washing hands, washing sanitize, actually using sanitizers. So this is nothing but the prevention from the disaster. So measures to avoid existing and new disaster risk is the prevention. Now mitigation. Mitigation, when you know, okay, you cannot avoid it, but you are trying to minimize the adverse impact of a disaster. So this is mitigation, that you are trying to you cannot shift your field from the cyclone prone areas or the flood prone areas. So what you could do when the flood could occur, or there is some news of cyclone, you can shift people from that particular region to the other region. So that is what is mitigation. Next one is preparedness. That is the knowledge and capacities to effectively anticipate and respond to and recover from the impact of disaster is preparedness. That means if there is any, all of you know, there is a discussion going on that if the third wave comes, so before that we need to prepare ourselves. We need to set up some oxygen cylinder farms. We need to set up some hospital infrastructure. We need to set up some good ventilator facilities. So these are nothing but the preparedness. Similarly, before any cyclone come, before any flood comes, so we try to take some we try to prepare ourselves for the disaster. So that is the preparedness. Now next one is response. So response is when we are taking some actions either before or during or immediate after disaster, or including all these 3 point of time. That means before the disaster, during the disaster, and immediate after the disaster, whatever actions you are taking to mitigate the problem of the disaster that could cause harm to us. So that is the response. Now next one is rehabilitation. So rehabilitation is restoration of the basic services and facilities. Like, okay, immediate after rain, immediate after flood, you need to restore the basic service, like you need to give drinking water, you need to give food to the people. So that is nothing but the basic rehabilitation. And then you need to shift the people from flood prone areas to the other areas. So now next one is recovery. So recovery is a broad concept which is actually taking into account restoring or improving of livelihoods and health, as well as economic, physical, social, cultural, environmental, and any other aspect of our life and livelihood in terms of any asset we are considering which is important for us, important for our society. So this is called recovery if we are trying to restore them or we are trying to improve them. So that is actually recovery. Now reconstruction. So reconstruction is the medium and the long-term rebuilding and sustainable restoration of resilient critical infrastructure and services. Suppose after the flood, the railway tracks have been just abolished. So roadway facility have been devastated. So if you are building those facilities again after the cyclone, people have lost their house, everything has been just there is nothing available to for anybody. So then you are making new houses for them, you are giving those services to them, like say basic food and other things. So this is and you are helping them to reconstruct their livelihood, then it is called the reconstruction. So in this case, you need to understand in reconstruction, we try to take such measures which helps the people for their full functioning in their society, in their community after the disaster. Now resilience. So resilience is ability to adapt to and recover from the hazard, so that we have some long-term goals. All of you know we have the long-term goals of different sustainable goals we have set. We have very short-term goals, we have long-term goals. So all these long-term prospective goals, if we are not compromising, but we are still trying to adopt or recover from different hazards and shocks or the stress without failing to reach our sustainable goals, sustainable development goals, then this is called resilience. Now, after this discussion, the basic definitions are over, but this was too boring. Now, to make you a bit excited with the presentation. I have bring few statistics for you, and you could see that how many disasters that has happened in 2019. So all over the world, there were around 308 natural disaster happen in our world. So you could see there are many which are located in Asia and African region. There are few, of course, in the South America and the North American region. Just to take the name of few such calamity or such disaster, not calamity, the disaster actually, like cyclone Fani. Okay, India during May 2019 there was one cyclone named Fani, which has affected around 20 million people. So similarly, Afghanistan faces a drought problem. Similarly, the wildfire in Australia, the cyclones in the Philippine region, typhoons in the various parts of Japan. So similarly, hurricane in the north, east in the North America. So these are the few aspects which we should understand, that why these many disasters. So let me tell you that 380 was not the total disaster in 2019. If we look at the total picture of 2019 all over the world, there were 479 disasters, out of which 27% of total disaster was only due to floods, then 12% for storms, then 24%. Let me tell you, this is categorically when I was discussing about the man-made disaster, the transport-related accidents is 24% of all the disasters happened in 2019 all over the world. So other than this, there are take name a few, like say earthquake, 7% of the total disaster, 7% is industrial accidents, and 5% is other different kinds of accidents, that is man-made kind of thing. So now moving further, if we just segregate it, that since 1960s, what are the different kind of disasters faced by our world? So we could see that since 1960 till 2019, all over the world, there were around 11,360 disasters, out of which 8,780, that means around 9,000 disaster is related to climate. So you could see that statistics in front of you, that flood was, there were 4,435 flood in our world. Apart from this, you could see several such factors like storm, landslide, other natural disaster has happened, including 1,000 of earthquake and 197 volcanic activity. So all this taken together, if we just take the annual average, so climate related disaster since 1916 to 2090, on an average yearly we had 146 climate related disaster, and if we take all different kind of disaster together, it would be 189. Now just look at the last decade, what was the situation. Let me tell you, in the last decade we had, within 10 years, 2,850, that means per year we had 285 disasters, out of which 236 related to climate. Now we are moving to 2019 only. In 2019, the average disaster was, as we have seen, 308, out of which 237 related to climatological, and then geophysical was 35, and biological was 36. So you can understand that where we are heading to. The annual average was 189 if we are taking from 1960 to 2019, which is increasing to 308 if we are considering only 2019. That means over time, the disaster intensity is going very bad towards situation. So now I'm just showing you what were the top 10 disaster in last 1 year, that is in the year 2019. So if you take all this into account, you could see that all the disaster that is in the top 10 list are only from either Asia or African region. So you could see out of this, Cyclone Fani, which actually affected around 20 million people from India and Bangladesh, is the major killer, because it actually impacted most of the people if you just compare all other disasters. So this was one of the major disaster out of all the top 10 disaster in 2019. So apart from this, you could see drought in Korea, then drought in India also was another significant people affected by it. Around 8 million people were affected with this drought. Then flood in Iran and Iraq also affected 10 million people. Drought in Afghanistan also affected 10 million people. Apart from these, various cyclones were responsible, like cyclone Idai, Kenneth was also there in the African region, which actually take huge toll. So now moving to the fact, I'm going to still further detail, like we are drilling down that during Corona pandemic only. In the Corona pandemic, what was the disaster situation? Was the Corona was only the disaster we are facing? No, there were many disaster all over the world we have faced during that Corona period, even till date also. So we have listed more than 100 such disaster all over the world during the Corona pandemic. To take the name of few, like okay, because all of you are from southern part of our country near Mysuru, that flood in Kerala during June 2020 was one of the major disaster. Apart from these, cyclones like Amphan, then just few months ago in Gujarat and our southern western coast actually faced another cyclone, and recently few part of our eastern India also faced another cyclone. So three cyclone we have already faced during this Corona period. So apart from these, there are many other, like explosion in the Beirut, that is the capital of Lebanon. Then heat wave in Europe was another major news. I believe none of us have missed it. And apart from this, flood in China, typhoon in Philippines, and various other flood in Kenya, drought in southern part of Africa and eastern part of Africa were responsible for huge disasters. So apart from this, if we are going through the disaster risk and climate vulnerability indices prepared by the World Disaster Report, so we could see that in terms of climate vulnerability or disaster risk, India is not at a very good position. It is with the overall vulnerability of the region is very high. So of course, NIDM is taking care of it. That is why they are regularly conducting such training program to sensitize people with different form of disaster and what to do and what are the different aspects we should know about the disaster to mitigate the challenges. Now, here I have listed few disaster, I would say, what we have observed in last few weeks only. So far, we were discussing about some from say 1960s to 2019. Now I'm showing you the statistics from last 6 to 7 weeks only. So all of you have seen that Tennessee, there was huge rainfall and around 17 inches rainfall within very small span of time, which actually caused a flood-like situation in Tennessee. Then earthquake with a magnitude of 7.2 in Haiti. Then in Niger, 37 civilians were killed by gunmen. Then Hurricane Grace actually unleashes several parts of Mexico, and many people, around 2,200 people, actually faced the problem. So this was another disaster. And all of you might have heard that Greenland faces huge rainfall, and rainfall, not snowfall. So a huge rainfall, and due to which a huge layer of say ice layer has been actually depleted. So what's the reason behind it? We of course we could say that this is related to climate change, and overall temperature of the earth is increasing. So because of this rainfall, the Sweden's highest peak has been reduced because the snow cover has been reduced several inches. So that is one major concern all over the world. Now coming to India, India is not an exception. You could see that I'm not talking about what is happening in Afghanistan, the political instability. I'm not talking about any issues like this. Just look at the climate-related disaster we are facing just within few weeks, like landslide in Kinnaur. It is just 1 or 2 months ago. So at least 13 people have died, and many were trapped in that situation. Then in Uttarakhand, Swala region, there was again one landslide in Kailani Road, another part of Uttarakhand. Then you all of you must know, because of this rainy season is going on and flood in different parts of India. Uttar Pradesh is facing the problem. Maharashtra, different parts of Maharashtra is facing the same problem. Bihar, recently Gujarat and Puri region of Odisha is facing flood related problems. Now, just weeks ago, not few weeks, few days ago, in fact, in West Bengal, Jalpaiguri district, around 120 to 150 children have been hospitalized because of influenza pandemic. So now coming to the next one, just if you have read today's newspaper, you must have observed that due to lightning related death in 2019 and 2020, 2020 and 2021, Jharkhand has lost around 300 lives. So these are just a glimpse of the iceberg we are giving. So this is just within few weeks that has been happened. So now I'm going to show you a very small video. I have almost finished my presentation, and I have a question for you. Just look at this video. I have a question for you. So let me tell you, this video is from a single event only. I don't know. I believe nobody has the right to speak. I can't hear anybody's voice. But I would ask you the question, and then I would give you the answer only. So my question is, what is it? And where it actually happens? So this was one form of disaster. All these pictures are from the same disaster. My question was where it happened and what was the name of this disaster. So you cannot imagine, this was the disaster from West Bengal. The tornado kind of storm hit various districts of West Bengal just before the cyclone Yash. So that was all from my side. Thank you so much. If you have any query, any question, you can email me always. And I'd stop my presentation here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Kindly switch on your video also, sir. That is all
Yeah,
for you. And thank you, sir.
That was indeed an informative session. Thank you, sir, for making us understanding the very basics of disaster, vulnerabilities, disaster risk, disaster damage, preparedness, response, rehabilitation, resilience, and many more, which might have created a true awareness in our young friends. We look forward to have many lectures with you in future also, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Just a gentle reminder to all our participants, you can post your questions in the chat box and give your valuable feedback provided in the chat box. Let me invite the professors of the session, Dr. Chandan sir from NIDM, Dr. S.K. Prasad sir, Dr. Umesh sir from VVCE, and even we have Vasishtha sir also with us in the panel. I request the professors to handle the question and answer session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Kanmani, and thank you, Professor Bose, for a very informative with lot of statistics, information on disasters and which disaster is more problematic and which region of the world is affected most. Very nicely, you took your lecture, and naturally, it shows that we in India are in quite a vulnerable situation. So we have to accept, and anything NIDM is doing is marvelous. We should respect all the objectives of NIDM. So I invite Professor Chandan Ghosh to make his comment, and then we shall go ahead. I'll check later on if there are some questions from participants posted. If so, I request Professor Bose to answer. So Chandan Ghosh, please.
Oh, okay, Professor Prasad, this is no doubt NIDM. Our JD NIDM is sitting over here. I am in another room, just hardly a few feet away, but and also presenting something on a special day. Today is Engineers Day. We had today, Engineers Day. So in the morning we had, just now it is finished, that we had the Engineers Day with Professor G.V. Rao from IIT Delhi, and who was invited here, and also Director of NIT Warangal, Professor Ramana Rao. So both the speaker, they spoke so well on the sustainability that even though being an engineers or engineers day, the question raised there that how to go for the geopolymer concrete rather than concrete. Why concrete is not good? Something like that. That was the kind of, because it was an issue on sustainability now. And so that Professor G.V. Rao, despite he spent his lifetime in IIT Delhi and now working with a firm of his own, and where he is elaborating more on jute geotextile or jute fiber, a natural fiber to stabilize erosion control and slope stability, increasing the capacity of the building or road or drainage condition. So something like that, when we are going back to the nature, when we have developed so much, and in between now that program that which is going on with an IDM, that on disaster management. And so it is really that it is such a occasion here, especially today, being Engineers Day, because we do engineering everywhere, but we talk of sustainability, and we are going towards the nature. And despite we are moving at a speed of maybe supersonic, more than 3,000 kilometers, Concorde 2,500 kilometers. Now another type of Concorde is coming up, even 30,000 kilometers, 60,000 kilometers. We are throwing our satellite to the sky, or despite we have gone that far extent, but a COVID-like pandemic has made all equations in a different way, and which we entire globe is fighting. So all calculation, mathematics, correlation, research, everything has come down just like that. We have to reorient ourselves that where we belong to for millions of years, that each and every microbe came to this world, and billions of years that they have shaped, and finally we took as a human being now, and then we started eating the things like Maggie in 2 minutes, whereas our body is not capable of taking the things. And so that way we see that it is a maddening world, that various area we are exploring. But good thing is that, especially that two presentations that I see today, especially on disaster management, which of course it is our NIDM is fortunate that to have a such kind of joint program with VVCE, where we had one program on futuristic disaster resilience in the month of June 11 to 13. And with all that we have discussed at that time with 6 presenters across the country, and now today with Japan side, Professor Tohata, he is all our group, and who has been talking about that how to take care of the sustainability in building design and foundation design, and what are the inspections to be done, and where they have been able to do something or calculate something, estimate something, and where we still cannot do. And the last part of is that someone asked about the computer simulation of flood inundation and something, which he says that it is not cup of tea, something like that. We are trying to make so many things together to do the simulation. But the thing is, we are trying because it is our nature, innate nature, to explore. But more evidently is that the kind of natural events or unnatural or the technological human-made events that have been happening, where we do not know yet where pandemic we can class in, because there are lots of controversies are there, whether it is a manufactured or whether it is a natural. Even amid that, we have to take care of our infrastructures and other things with the area where disaster management, where all flow of knowledge now come together to reconfigure our way of life.
Thank you, Professor Chandan Ghosh. I really appreciate your message. To very briefly put your message, we have to respect our nature. We have to understand our nature. And I was just remembering, when I started my engineering career as a student in 1977, 45 years back, the focus was on low-cost housing, economy. Slowly, it shifted to safety. So low cost, economy, and safety. And now we are talking about sustainability. So how slowly, we have moved from economy, safety, and now to sustainability. I totally appreciate whatever you mentioned. And as you rightly said, what I appreciate with Professor Tauhata is, give a simple solution, give a practical solution. You don't have to think big, a simple but very effective solution. So keeping that in mind, and on Engineers Day, we will all pledge that we will work towards that, and we'll try to see that we I can't say control nature, we at least manage and see to it that disasters are reduced, controlled. So with this, I now request Lieutenant Colonel Vashishta to make his comments.
So thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And I would just again mention, and since Professor Chandan Ghosh has just joined us, so we are just feet away sitting, but this I take the opportunity to actually wish him Happy Engineers Day through your medium, sir. And it is coming via Mysuru, sir.
Nice.
So great, sir. And I must tell you, Professor Chandan Ghosh is again what you have said about our Japanese eminent speaker, Dr. Tohata. So same is Dr. Chandan Ghosh, sir. You might be aware about his new research works which are going on. especially
much, sir.
in the wastewater management, and he is giving the very simple solutions, and the sustainability, the disaster, and to get it in alignment with all the factors. Our engineers are working at NIDM also, sir, under Professor Chandan Ghosh. So we are also under the same theme. We are working simple solutions towards a resilient India, towards a disaster-free India, and by integrating the Terry Institute of Advanced Studies through Dr. Montu Bosser. He is an expert into sustainable development. He is a business manager otherwise, but sustainability is factored into his business models also. So through that, how that model comes into sustainability and into disaster management. So it's a new thing, as you have said, sir, since 1977, you have seen economy and then the safety, and then now is the buzzword is the sustainability. So we are also, as an IDM, we also profess the same, and through Professor Chandan Ghosh, we are into the technology, the engineering things are coming into now the sustainable development also, sir. Thank you so much, Professor Chandan Ghosh and Professor S.K. Prasad for giving us time, and to Dr. Monty, who has presented our mandate of the basics on disasters so well, sir. Thank you so much for giving me time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, Lieutenant Colonel Vasishta. I request Professor Umesh to have a quick word, and after that, I request Professor Bose to have his last word before we close today. Okay?
So, yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I have a question. What you are going to tell to our students on this disaster? Professor Montu Bose.
Professor Bose, okay.
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please? Sorry.
No, what you are going to tell to our students for this
your message
disaster?
to our students. Your message to engineering students.
Okay, so basically the message is very clear from the statistics that I have showed during my presentation, that you have seen that climate is the major factor which is taking too much toll to our life and livelihood. So we have to start thinking everything sustainably. Our living as well as our whatever we do in our life, we need to think as we in our university we always talk about that there is enough for our need, but there is not enough for our greed. So we have to be consume everything limited. We need to save our nature, and as an engineer students, you have to okay, nowadays even in the urban region, what are the different kind of engineering method people are applying to save the nature, to actually put greenery, like vertical expansion of the greeneries that is going on. Even under the flyover, people are making beautiful gardens and beautiful green places. So the only thing is, in this way, as Professor Chandan was also saying, as Professor Prasad was also saying, that we have to think some way which would be very not some rocket science, very simple thing, but would give fruitful result for not only for us, for our next generation also. Because all of you know, we have not taken the generation from our past generations, we have borrowed this generation from our future generations. So that is the only message for all the people who are here today.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And
very nice.
I think, we have crossed our time now. So I personally thank each one of you for your valuable inputs and for a wonderful first day of our online training program. I now hand over to Professor Kanmani to do the final things on this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you all the professors for that interactive and interesting panel of discussion. Now I request Manoj sir to propose vote of thanks for session 3 of day 1.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. As we have come to the end of the third lecture on online training program regarding fundamentals of disaster management, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Mysuru, and National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi, I convey my sincere thanks to this session speaker, Montu Bose, Assistant Professor, Department of Business and Sustainability, Terry School of Advanced Sciences, for sharing his knowledge and experience. Thank you, sir. I also thank Dr. Chandan Ghosh, Professor, NIDM, for his encouragement in organizing this event. Thank you, sir. My sincere thanks to Dr. Umesh sir, Professor and Chairman, Research Studio, Department of Civil Engineering, VVCE. Thank you, sir. I wholeheartedly thank Dr. S.K. Prasad sir, Professor and Head, for his continuous support in organizing such events. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Manoj, you forgot to thank Lieutenant Colonel Vashishta.
Yeah.
He has been
Yes, sir.
he has been the backbone of this.
Thank you, sir.
My sincere thanks to you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
My sincere thanks to Lieutenant Colonel Vashishta sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Manoj, sir. Now we are closing this
I
session
also
three
thank
of day one.
organizing committee members of NIDM as well as VVCE.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you,
And the
sir.
participants, of course.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, now we are closing this session 3 of day 1. Dear participant friends, let us break for today and we join for the next session tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. by Major General V.K. Nayak, Kirti Chakra, Atte Vishishta Seva Medal, former Senior Consultant NDAM, and on disaster mitigation, followed by session 2 on risk, vulnerability and hazard by Brigadier Dr. Vinod Datta, former Senior Consultant NIDM, former Secretary DCMG DM. Subscribers and join us to tomorrow's session. Links are available in the chat box itself and give your valuable feedback also. With a hope to see you all on tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yes.
please mention about the prize.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay.
Dear participants, you already know that in our banner itself, we have mentioned you have attractive prize of worth 10,000 rupees and for which you should attend all the quiz questions which are there in the feedback itself. And you should do it as early as possible because time is also very important to us. Those who give the right answer and the first answer will be given the prize amount worth 10,000, the top 3 members. And that's it from our side. Subscribe and stay tuned to us for tomorrow's sessions. And happy Engineers Day to everyone again. With this note, I'm Kanmani signing off as MC today for today's session. Thank you all. Thank you, sirs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.